Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. It's Monday, November 23rd, 2020. This is a regular Bloomington City Council meeting. I'm going to start our meeting as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please rise if you're able and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Christensen, if you could please do the roll call for us.
Sure thing, thank you. Councilmember Beloga? I see him.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter?
Present.
Councilmember Coulter?
Present.
Councilmember Lohman?
Here.
Councilmember Martin?
Present.
Councilmember Nelson? Mayor Bussey?
Here. The record show all 7 members of the Bloomington City Council are present this evening. Next up is our approval of agenda. Council, what I would like to offer as a possible amendment to the agenda is to move items 8.6 and 8.7 ahead of 8.4 and 8.5. So we'd go from 8.3 to 8.6 to 8.7 and then back to 8.4 and 8.5. That way it would bundle the budget issues all together in one. That would give us 8.4, 8.5, and then 9, 1, 2, and 3, which are budget items as well. So we could just kind of keep on topic in terms of talking budgets and all in one lump, all in one grouping. If that makes sense, if everybody's amenable, I'd like to offer that as an amendment to the agenda.
Second, Councilmember Lohman.
Got a motion and a second to adopt tonight's agenda as amended. Hearing no further discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson? Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We've got an amended agenda. We will start with move now to item 5.1 on our agenda, which is approval of the Veterans Memorial Design Concept Proposal and Site Location. We've been talking about a possible Veterans Memorial here on the grounds of Bloomington Civic Plaza for some time, and we are to the point of the Design Concept Proposal and Site Location proposal. Very excited to hear this proposal and look forward to this. And so I will turn this to, I'm sorry, is this Melissa Wurst-Prasad? Melissa is going to lead us in this. Ms. Wurst-Prasad, good evening, welcome.
Well, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we were all on. Let me just pull up my presentation here for us. And let me just switch. All right, thank you for your patience. Are you able to see it?
Not yet, we are not.
Okay. Let's see, I don't have the option available. Amy, can you give me the option to share my screen to be a presenter?
One moment, please.
Okay.
You should have that option now.
I have share file, but not my screen available. Otherwise, I can quickly send you our presentation as well.
Okay, why don't you do that for now? Because I'm showing that you have full privileges.
Let me quickly send this to you.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We'll get this in just a second. Some technical issues here.
Did you see that, Amy?
Did you send it to my email?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not seeing it yet.
Melissa, maybe if we could get the presentation started, and we'll catch up with the presentation once we have the actual visuals. We can catch up as we go.
Sure, sounds good. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. We are very excited to be here tonight. My name is Melissa Wurst-Prasad, and I'm manager of the Community Outreach and Engagement Division. And so tonight we are here to share the selected design concept proposal for the Veterans Memorial. Also joining me tonight for the presentation, you'll be hearing from Mike Dardis. He is Vice President of Bloomington Remembers Veterans, along with two other city staff, Dave Hansen, our Assistant Maintenance Superintendent, and Leah Hughes, who is our manager for the Center of the Arts. And so we are going to go through the selected design concept proposal for you, and then we'll also be seeking a motion of approval for the design proposal as well as the site selection. And I'm trying something quickly here to be able to pull up
You should be able to now.
RFQ from, okay. And it's just loading here, so you can just bear with me for one other quick minute. I will share with the update, I'm going to be going over the design selection process overview that we used. Then Mike Dardis will review the design concept selection, and then Dave Hansen will cover the maintenance considerations of the design proposal, and then Leah Hughes will go over the site usage and impacts.
Melissa, we have liftoff. Well done.
All right, perfect. And I think, Amy, I don't have, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So I'm going to jump ahead to where we are. So if you recall back in September, Mike Dardis and I were here and we shared this project timeline with you. So I just wanted to highlight that again and show you where we are in the process. We did begin in 2016. This project was identified. And as I mentioned previously, we are very excited to be here at the green button with our selected design presentation for you. And then following that will be the fundraising. We'll begin more aggressively now that there is a concept proposal that we can use for fundraising. All right, so now the design selection process overview. Just to remind everyone, these are the members of Bloomington Remembers Veterans, which is the organization that we are partnering with on this project. And I just wanted to highlight that in addition to serving as board members of Bloomington Remembers Veterans, these members are also representing the following organizations, which include the Bloomington Historical Society, American Legion Post 550, the VFW Post 1296, Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, Daughters of the American Revolution, and Martin Luther Campus. And these individuals served as our design proposal panelists. And so there was a mix of individuals from Bloomington Remembers Veterans, those listed here, Mike Dardis, Francis Stackhour, David Griffin, William Botsford, Dwayne Brinkman, Don Wilson, and Les Fordall. And then city staff who served on the panel included Dave Hansen, who you'll be hearing from later on, as well as our creative placemaking director, Alejandra Palenka. Leah Hughes and I served as facilitators for that discussion and led the conversation and debriefs from each of the proposals, and then also for the final design selection. There were 4 design proposals submitted and from the 4 teams that were selected, and those included HGA, the 292 Design Group, Hoshu Wang, and Leo Daly. And the concept proposal was asked to include the following goals within a budget of $700,000. So they included honor and paying tribute to those who served in war, sacrificed their lives, and to demonstrate the community's commitment to veterans. The next was remembrance and reflection. It was desired that within the memorial space, there should also be a quiet place where one can reflect on the sacrifices that have been made for our country and have that individual alone time if desired. The third goal was community gathering and events. The committee felt it was important to provide a place for the community to gather to pay respect. And this takes many forms, from Veterans Day commemorations to smaller gatherings that might honor an individual or a smaller event. The fourth goal was historical and education elements. One of the critical missions of the memorial is to educate the visitor and to tell the story of how war affects everyone, not only the veterans, both on the war front, but also those at home. And the final goal was looking forward and future growth. And the memorial should include considerations for the future, including incorporating technology where appropriate, long-term maintenance, and then ongoing options for fundraising. So I will now hand over the presentation to Michael Dardis, who will share our selected design concept proposal with you.
Good evening, Mr. Dardis. Welcome. Mike, I believe you might be muted.
There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, indeed we can. Welcome back. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. It's my pleasure to present the proposal that our proposal panel selected that meets the criteria, the most depth of the criteria that we proposed in the RFQ. That proposal comes from Leo A. Daly. And we are pleased that, and you'll see that from the design here, this is a design that runs parallel with the water course beginning in the parking lot, running off to the left, which we'll go into more detail with the various design elements. But we're very pleased with this because over 100 of their employees who are veterans became involved with their company and making recommendations as to what they would have liked to have seen in a Veterans Memorial honoring their service as well. They also are interested in partnering with the city to further community engagement via Zoom and the Bloomington engagement vehicle to finalize the design elements. So we're very pleased with the enthusiasm that this group has. And I think this model is going to be a very handsome and respectable model for the Bloomington Memorial for us. Next slide, please. This is the beginning at the parking lot. It will begin with a four-sided sign that will begin to address the history and the purpose of the memorial as people walk in. It's very level, very flat, so it's very accommodating for ADA purposes, and you can see it's a very inviting situation. Next slide, please. The basic design for the memorial encompasses several different elements, but here we're showing that there are two paths. One path in the center, which is really designed for the veteran walking alone, reflecting the veteran's own responsibility and service, and the path on the far right, which is designed as a wider path for the families. And we'll go into some of these other design elements in a couple of other slides too. Thank you. Next slide, please. These metal tubes reflect the 6 military organizations that presently exist: Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines, and Space Force. And they flow across this memorial, and they come to an end with a flagpole. So it's 6 service academies or service units that wind up under one flag. And hanging from these metal poles will be various, we call them dog tags, but they'll probably be larger than that. That provides basically recognition for individual veterans, stories, and so forth. That's probably shown more clearly in the next slide. There's several different options as far as what can be put on those metal tags. This could be useful for us in fundraising purposes. For the sake of discussion, we were talking about them being dog tags, but obviously they're going to be much larger than that, I would think. But they could be messages in themselves hanging from these on these metal items. But they can also carry various things such as embedded messages for families from veterans and other things as well. Next slide, please. Off to the left side of this are 6 basically circular benches that have embedded symbols of the various armed forces categories, beginning in the sequence that they were formed, beginning in the Army, going to the Navy, and winding up with the Space Force in 2020. These can also be used for benches for people to sit on, and we could also use those for some fundraising purposes as well. They'll be the inside will be metal symbols of the various military formations, and these will be lit at night, which we'll show a little bit later. Next slide, please. At the far side, far end of this, we'll be proposing an area which will be for contemplation and reflection, with, again, some benches that would be there. One of the features would be there would be a veteran's light, which has to be worked out as far as to meet code requirements and so forth. The idea would be a symbol of the veteran spirit going towards the heavens in this situation. Next slide, please. For expansion purposes and future use, off to towards the building will be an area for group gatherings like Memorial Day and Veterans Day and such and so forth. And you'll see the flagpole there. That flagpole right now, you'll see the tube that comes out is reflected. That's the one tube, 6 tubes coming together, reflecting the academy, one flagpole. We'll also have a POW and MIA flag probably on that post as well. Next slide. This is a scene where we propose what it would look like in winter. This would be an all-season type of memorial. People could get out there. I mean, it would be accessible, assuming it's plowed and so forth, but a little idea for the winter scene and how the trees would look and so forth. Next slide. And this is how it would be looking at night. Again, we're looking at these circular benches would be lit, LED lights, very cost effective, very soft light. The poles themselves, of course, the flagpole we're proposing to have lit, and of course this light source here. Next slide. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dave for maintenance considerations.
Good evening, Mr. Hanson. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to talk about maintenance and how the materials are lined up for this proposal. Melissa, could you flip to the next slide? We simply included this one to illustrate the importance of good design and proper material selection to provide long-term durability and low maintenance, especially in a climate like ours. Next slide, please. So you saw this one a few minutes ago when Mike was talking about it. I'll just touch on the materials that the design team proposed using. So first of all, the metal is either going to be anodized aluminum or stainless steel. These are both considered excellent corrosion resistance, low maintenance material for exterior use. Stainless steel is more expensive to fabricate, so that may be a consideration as the memorial is developed. The round structure is off to the left. The bases are planned to be concrete, and like Mike said, the top insignias for the branches of the military are going to be made out of the same metal that the sculpture is made of. And then there'll be some LED lights shining down from underneath the base where they're built in. The landscaping shown is all going to be native plants, so similar to the rest of the site. So it'll be complementary to the memorial as well as the adjacent landscape. They're planning on putting in a design that has low growing grasses and some blooming flowers. Like Mike said, the light element at the end is designed to be a focal point, but not completely developed. But will meet all code and regulatory requirements at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leah, who's going to talk about site considerations.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Ms. Hughes, welcome.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Dave. As Mike and Dave both mentioned, the design is located in the area immediately next to the pond by the east side parking lot. There are two main reasons for this location being chosen by the design team. First and foremost, accessibility, especially for those who may have mobility issues. So this design would be closer to the parking lot with direct access off of the sidewalk, so there would be no need for use of any steps, stairs, or ramps. It's a shorter walk to gain access to the memorial and enter the memorial. The second reason is aesthetics. The design team felt strongly that this location had a better symmetry and connection with the site as a whole. And it had a greater connection to the already existing landscape and architecture located near and adjacent to the site. So the symmetry with the sidewalk that's lined with trees and the symmetry with the pond and other walking areas in this grassy area on the east side of the building is where the design team felt that aesthetically and accessibility wise, the design would have the most impact and availability. You will see that it is built over the top of where the amphitheater currently is located. Historically, this amphitheater has been underutilized. And so in conversation with both Melissa and other members of the panel, the design team felt that this was a stronger location and that if need be, if the council did not approve the memorial taking place of where the amphitheater is, that it could be relocated either higher up closer to the building, or converse to that, the amphitheater that is currently there could potentially be rebuilt in another location, potentially closer to the building, so that way both of those things could coexist together. Any questions for me? If not, I will turn it back to Melissa.
All right, thank you. As Leah said, we are now happy to stand for any questions that anyone has.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Lohman.
No, not much of a question, more so a comment. Just wanted to, and I don't want to stop you, Mayor, from saying anything either, but just want to thank staff and also the committee and those folks who worked along with this to kind of bring this to fruition. I know that we looked at this way back so many years ago. I'm just happy to see that we're finally getting this to a point to where it is today. Again, just a hearty thanks. Just being a military brat family, just great to see something like this happening in Bloomington.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Beloga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Melissa, I know that these are plans and that there's fundraising to do, but this is, and I speak as the only vet on the city council, this is something that I think many of us have waited many years for, and seeing that we're getting closer, what is the expected date for completion of construction?
As was stated, we're not using any or expecting any city contribution, so it will all be through private fundraising. So the hope is potentially 2022, but it could be further out to 2023. It will really just be contingent on when those funds are raised.
Thank you, because every day that passes, we lose more of our world's greatest generation who served us all and did wonderful things for the country in the Second World War, and sooner is better is my only comment. Thank you.
Council, additional questions? Well, I'd just like to say I appreciate the work of the committee. I appreciate the work of staff involved in this and everybody who has seen this through this multi-year project through. You've done outstanding work, and I think this is spot on in a lot of different ways. I couldn't agree more with the location. I like it running parallel to the water and using that as a feature along with it. I do understand moving the amphitheater. I think it's easier to move the amphitheater than to try and reconfigure this memorial in such a way that it would do what you want it to do, make it as accessible as possible and as easy to get to as possible, which I certainly understand, and I think it's a notable goal and a laudable goal. It's certainly something that we should follow. But I think it hits so many of the right notes. It's simple. It's not overly extravagant. It tells a story, obviously. It's got pieces of it, different elements that you can see at different times in different ways as you walk through it. And I think the design is impressive, and I tip my cap to you. I think it's well done and look forward to seeing it coming to fruition. And to echo Councilmember Beloga, boy, the sooner the better on this. I think this is late. Well, not late. I won't say late. I'll say this is overdue here in the city of Bloomington. We should absolutely have a veterans memorial in the city of Bloomington, and I'm glad we're moving forward on it now, and look forward to see it continue, and look forward to the ribbon cutting just as soon as possible.
Thank you. So we would like to seek a motion of approval from council for the design concept and the site location.
I will ask council one last chance. Any questions, council, comments to this? If not, I would look for a motion.
Mayor, I'd be happy to second a motion if Mr. Beloga, being our lone veteran, would like to go ahead and move this.
Councilmember Beloga?
Thank you. I was just looking for the motion sheet. It's right in front. Thank you. Move to approve the Veterans Memorial Design Concept Proposal on Site Location. And Dwayne, thank you for allowing me the honor of doing that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Beloga and a second by Councilmember Lohman to approve the Veterans Memorial Design Concept Proposal and Site Location. Council, any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga? I think you might have been muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And I want to reiterate once again for folks who are watching that this is contingent completely on private fundraising. So this will be a privately funded memorial for our veterans in the city of Bloomington. I know they're going to start their fundraising in earnest now that they actually have a design and be able to have something to show people. And so if you would have the means and would have the idea to do so, please do contribute to it, because the sooner we can get the funds raised, the sooner it can be built. And as I said, we can cut the ribbon as soon as possible. So thank you much. Thanks to staff. And once again, thanks to the committee that's been working on it. And thanks to all the veterans in Bloomington. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and council members.
With that, we're going to move on to item 6, our consent agenda. Councilmember Coulter has our consent agenda this evening. Councilmember Coulter.
Mayor, before we move on, I just want to clarify the motion. Who made the motion and who made the second?
The motion was made by Councilmember Beloga and was seconded by Councilmember Lohman.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. I have not heard from anyone who would like to hold anything, but I will confess that I missed the memo and did not see that I had consent for this evening. So I will make a call here and now if there is anyone who would like to hold anything from the consent agenda.
Councilmember Coulter, I would like to hold item 6.2. And Mr. Verbrugge, you had something to offer here?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'd like to hold item 6.9 just for a technical correction.
Mayor, if nobody else, or if it's not on the agenda already, item 6.1 as well.
I just assumed Councilmember Coulter would be holding item 6.1, the resolution to accept donations.
Okay, perfect. Then we're good to go.
Thank you,
Yes.
Councilmember
sorry.
Martin.
Yeah, sorry again about that. I obviously missed the boat on that one. So I'm not seeing or hearing anybody else. So with that, I will move items 6.3 through 6.8.
Beloga, second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter and a second by Councilmember Beloga to accept or to approve items 6.3 to 6.8 on the consent agenda. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Loman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Coulter.
Why don't we do 6.2 and then 6.9 and then we'll close at 6.1?
Very good. And as I said, I held item 6.2, which is an amendment to the 2020 City Council calendar, and just wanted to make the council aware that this calendar change is actually going to add a couple of meetings. We're going to have 2 study meetings added to the calendar, one on November 30th and the next on December 14th. They weren't on the calendar originally, and those were off Monday nights for us, but we're going to add 2 study meetings because, frankly, we've got a lot of work to do between now and the end of the year, and appreciate the opportunity to do so. Appreciate that staff is willing to take this on. Appreciate the council for taking on those Monday nights, even though originally they were off Monday nights on your schedule. So thanks much for consenting to be part of those. And I just wanted to let the general public know that those would be as part of the council calendar. November 30th and December 14th, we will be having study meetings. So just wanted to make that public and everybody aware. And with that, I will move approval of item 6.2.
Second by Beloga.
We've got a motion and a second by Beloga for item 6.2, the amendment to the 2020 City Council calendar. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Loman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Item 6.9.
Mr. Mayor and council members, just a technical correction on the resolution, if adopted, is in your packet. It actually has a number assigned to the resolution, which is a little bit of a formatting snafu in our system. So just if anybody's wondering, it's going to be resolution number 2020-blank, and then we fill in the resolution numbers after the fact. So if we can just acknowledge that. I don't think it needs to be part of the formal action, but I did want to call it out. And also the resolution, you may notice, is not in the standard format. Again, a little bit of a formatting snafu with our peak agenda system. So it will be put into the standard format once approved, if done so.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. Council, any additional questions on that? If not, I'd look for a motion and a second on item 6.9.
I'll move 6.9 for adoption.
Second.
And a motion by Councilmember Beloga and a second by Councilmember Carter to adopt item 6.9 on the consent business. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Loman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson? Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Let's bring us back to item 6.1, the resolution to accept donations. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As always, we're very appreciative of the folks who make donations to the city of Bloomington. And this week, we have a number of donations, including one from Hunger Solutions Minnesota to our public health department. A number of individuals and organizations made donations to the Bloomington Police Department. And we received, the Bloomington Center for the Arts received 2 sculptures as donations this week as well. And so I trust that staff will be sending out thank yous as appropriate, but I just wanted to call out those generous contributions to the city of Bloomington. So with that, I will move item 6.1 for adoption.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second by Councilmember. We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter and a second by Councilmember Carter. to accept item 6.1 on the council business, or the consent business? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
I apologize. I missed who seconded that.
That was Councilmember Carter.
Okay, thank you. Beloka.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Bowman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We will move on now to item 7 on our agenda, which is our public comment period. Public comment period is a 20-minute period at each council meeting where we accept public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. We start with item 7.1, which is a response to prior meetings' public comments. Mr. Verbrugge, I believe we did not have any, but I will ask.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
We did not have any public comment at the last public comment period. So we'll move on to item 7.2, which is the public comment period. And a reminder to the folks who are tuning in and hope to be part of public comment period. It's a 20-minute period, and each speaker will have 5 minutes, and you'll be stopped at 5 minutes. Not because we're being mean or trying to stifle your free speech, but rather we're trying to make it as fair and as equitable to everyone who calls in, everyone who is part of the public comment period. The city council and myself or the city manager, we won't be responding to you immediately unless it's a simple statement of fact. When's New Year's Day, for example, something like that. But we won't be responding to the item that is brought up at this time, but it will be responded at the next meeting when the city manager gives his response to public comment period. And so I will ask Amy Cheney. By the way, Chris Wilson, who is typically seated just to my right here and typically handles all the technology, is not with us this evening. She has the week off, so good for her. I hope she's enjoying her downtime. Amy Cheney, who is our Director of IT here at the City of Bloomington, is running the big board for us. So, Ms. Cheney, do we have any speakers for public comment period, item 7.2?
Thank you, Mayor. Jerome, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy, I can hear you.
Jerome, do we have anyone wishing to speak to item number 7.2?
Right. Anyone who wishes to speak for item 7.2, please press star 1. No one wishes. Oh, excuse me. We have Andrew Toole wishes to speak. Your line is now open.
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
We can indeed. If you could just repeat your name for the record, and then please go ahead, Andrew.
This is Andrew Thule, backed by popular demand.
Good evening. Welcome.
Council, Mayor. Yeah, evening, guys. No, well, welcome. Say hi to council members, mayor, and manager. I wanted to talk about the 7th pillar of transparency and engagement, or lack thereof. Ann Catray, our Park and Rec director, in a YouTube video dated August 27th of 2019, said Valley View Pool needs replacement, likely in 2026 or in a few years. She states, quote, the pool shell, because of extreme conditions, it has significant damage. And I assure you, without water in the pool, it has significant deterioration. So recently here, October 26th, in a city council study session, Ann Catray says again, an evaluation has been done of the pool shell, and good news, great maintenance, painting, and caulking. They had an outside firm come and analyze the pool, and the pool is good now for 20 years. So who is zooming who in the Ann Catray thing? So then pulling up an old Sun Current article by Mike Hanks, in a Bloomington Sun Current article dated May 1st, 2019, City Manager Verbrugge stated that Valley View Pool needs replacement in a couple of years at an estimated cost of $12 million in 2026. Now, council, mayor, and manager, this is all public. It's out there on YouTube. You can look at the videos. Who is zooming who? And just so you know, $100,000 was actually spent of taxpayer money in pursuit of the design at Valley View Park. Why was a study, or why didn't you hire a firm to come look at the pool before falsely marketing that the pool needs replacement? I assure you, the pool is in rough shape. Our city does a fine job maintaining the pool. So in the next council meeting, City Manager Verbugi, can you please tell the public why Park and Rec Director lied directly and pushed the Valley View Park narrative? Also, can you respond on why an analysis was not performed on the pool before spending $100,000 on design and marketing of the Valley View Park? This is $100,000 that the taxpayers will not ever see back. And there that design sits, and the public did not want it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Thule.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Mr. Verbrugge.
I'm not going to provide the response right now because that's not how we do things. And Mr. Thule, I will have a full response on December 7th, but I'm not going to allow a member of our staff to be called a liar in the middle of a meeting and not have that corrected. Ms. Catry did not lie. We'll present the information to council and back to the public in the future. And I think it's important that we not let comments like that go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. Ms. Cheney, do we have any additional callers?
Jerome, is anyone else waiting to speak to item 7.2?
Thank you. No one wishes to speak. You may continue.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you. We still have about 15 minutes left in the public comment period, so I'll leave it open for now, and we will come back to it and make one final call in just a few minutes here, and then close the public comment period after we get to that point. Let's move on now to item 8, our hearings, resolutions, and ordinances, and item 8.1, which is a public hearing approving the tax increment financing for Lyndale Flats Affordable Housing Development at 9320 Lyndale Avenue South, and approve the taxable general obligation tax increment revenue bonds. I think we have Sherry Showquist from our HRA here this evening, and I believe Lori Economy Shoulder is going to help out, as well as Michaela Hoot from Baker Tilly. We've got a whole number of folks who might be talking to us on this one.
Good evening, Mayor Busey and council members. Sherry Showquist with the HRA, searching for my PowerPoint to share.
And we have it on our screen now.
That is fantastic. Thank you very much. I believe all of the council members now are very familiar with the Lyndale Flats project at 9320 Lyndale Avenue South. This is the first project, affordable housing project, that received funding with the launch of the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. Lyndale Flats is a 20 million high-density multifamily rental development with 81 affordable units at 60% area of median income. It is being developed by MWF Properties, and it will be 4 stories of apartments with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The amenities include underground parking, a fitness center, a community room, on-site management, in-unit laundry, and balconies. And we're working to meet a deadline for closing by December 31st of this year, and then construction will start in early 2021 and be completed by December of 2021. We are before you tonight with a request for tax increment financing to capture tax base growth resulting from new development, and in this case of affordable housing, with increment captured to pay for the costs related to the development. Under the statutory findings to approve the TIF district, the main test that must be met is that the proposed development would not occur but for the use of tax increment financing, and that is the case with Lyndale Flats. The TIF plan conforms with the comprehensive plan as found earlier this month by the Planning Commission. The development will provide a range of housing choices and provide affordable housing to serve local demand. We find ourselves now tonight at the City Council TIF public hearing and approval as recommended by the HRA Commission. And then the second piece of this item that will be presented by our Chief Financial Officer is regarding the authorized draw and land reimbursement. So the recommendation before you this evening is to approve the redevelopment project area, redevelopment plan, tax increment financing plan, and to establish the tax increment financing housing district for the Lindale Flats development at 9320 Lindale Avenue South. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions of Ms. Schulquist on this part of the presentation? I see no hands going up, so let's move on to Ms. Economy Shoulder if we could.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, on the TIF items, those require the public hearing. The actual draw does not require a public hearing. So depending on how the council would like to move the items, before you is a potential draw of $1.7 million out of the initial $15.2 million that the council authorized in the 2019 C bonds. And this would be for the land swap that we are working on with the Lindale Flats. And to pay the $1,750,000 back, we would be utilizing the TIF stream from this project. And so there would be sufficient TIF afterwards of approximately 20% to go into the Housing Trust Fund for future projects. So if the council has any questions, I'm on the here, and Julie Eddington is also available should the council have questions in regards to the actual technical bond activities of this.
Council, questions of Ms. Economy Shoulder? Again, I see no hands going up. So with that, I will open the public hearing. This is item 8.1, a public hearing to approve the tax increment financing for Lindale Flats Affordable Housing Development at 9320 Lindale Avenue South, and to approve the taxable general obligation tax increment revenue bonds. It is a public hearing. Ms. Cheney, do we have anyone on the line who wishes to speak to item 8.1?
Jerome, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy, I can hear you.
Do we have anyone wishing to speak to item 8.1?
No one joined for this item. You may continue.
Thank you.
I see no one coming forward virtually or via the WebEx to speak to this item and the public hearing. So, Council, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Councilmember Beloga with his hand up. A question, Councilmember.
Oh, I was going to offer the motion.
Oh, very good. Please, Councilmember Beloga. Councilmember Beloga, we have to close the public hearing first. Start with that one, and then we'll move to the motion.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Move to close the public hearing.
Second, Councilmember Lohman.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beloga and a second by Councilmember Lohman to close the public hearing on item 8.1. No further discussion from council. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing. Councilmember Beloga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt a resolution approving the redevelopment project area, redevelopment plan, tax increment financing plan, and establishing the tax increment financing housing district for the Lindale Flats development at 9320 Lindale Avenue South.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Martin.
We have a motion by Councilmember Beloga and a second by Councilmember Martin. Councilmember Coulter, a question?
Not a question, but I wanted to wait until after we close the public hearing to just to express this thought. I am in support of the project overall in the TIF district, but I just wanted to sort of take the opportunity to say that this entire project is affordable at 60% of area median income, and we know that while that there is still a need for that, there is quite a bit more need for housing at lower income levels. And I wouldn't say I'm worried about it now, but I think we in the future may want to consider being more judicious with some of the options that we have. In particular, I think with establishing TIF districts to ensure that we are getting at some of that lower level affordability housing. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that, because I think we, as we consider to sort of dig down into addressing the affordable housing crisis, we need to, I think, just be much more creative and intentional about our efforts. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Coulter. Councilmember Carter, and then Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would agree with Councilmember Coulter's comments about prioritizing as we move forward, since we've done a pretty good job getting enough units at that 60% AMI price point. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, there have been news stories over the past couple of years around increasing issues related to, workers' compensation and labor trafficking at a lot of the, I shouldn't say a lot of, at some job sites. And I just wanted to, we haven't really had explicit conversations like that in general, or about that issue in general. And I don't want to say that the developer has any of those practices happening at their sites. But I would like to know, especially since they're going to be benefiting from, public assistance through the TIF resources and other things. What are they doing in terms of their own policies and practices as a developer, and in terms of who they subcontract with, to make sure that they don't have any of these unfair labor practices happening on their job sites? Because I know sometimes it could, it may even be something that a subcontractor is a part of, and they may not have any idea it's happening. So anyways, I just want to put that out there, and I would love, it doesn't have to be right now, but in the future for us to have a broader conversation about that. And then if the developer could respond offline around some of the different, policies and practices that they have in place themselves to make sure those things aren't happening, I would appreciate hearing about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Carter. Ms. Schulquist, if you could maybe work with the developer, and if we could get a check-in, a report back from the developer about some of Councilmember Carter's concerns, that would be greatly appreciated.
Mayor Boosie, Councilmember Carter, thank you very much for raising this important issue. We have looked into it and can report that Eagle Building has compliance and monitoring measures in place to prevent these things from occurring. We have more detail, and we will follow up with council members offline.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. I first just wanted to echo Councilmember Coulter's points with regards to our focus on the 60% AMI here. I think it's a good project. I will support it, but I think there's a lot of work to do in other areas as well, and to use limited resources is tough here. The other point that I want to bring up is just that conversation with regards to integration of units and having all of these basically at the same price point, or near the same price point, is something, from a policy level, I'd like to see a little bit more integrated projects, which I think is consistent with the Opportunity Housing Ordinance goals. So just those two kind of policy questions. I think it's a good project, and look forward to adding some nice units into our housing stock.
And I would agree with you, Councilmember Nelson, on both points. Councilmember Lohman.
Mayor, I think this is a great proposal. Just want to little friendly advice to my colleagues. We should be careful about talking about policy when we're getting ready to pass a particular item that's not policy related, to really save that for our policy and issue update. I think it's a great proposal we've got moving forward, and I look forward to seeing if we pass this.
Council, any additional questions? Well, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the redevelopment project area, redevelopment plan, tax increment financing plan, and establishment of the tax increment financing housing district for the Lindale Flats development at 9320 Lindale Avenue South. Unless there's further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Bowman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Beloga, there is a second motion that we have to make, a second resolution that we have to adopt here as well.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I move to adopt the resolution relating to the city's taxable general obligation tax increment revenue bonds, Series 2019C, amending resolution number 2019-11, approving amendments to documents executed in connection with the bonds, and approving the execution and delivery of a tax increment pledge agreement.
Second, Martin.
We've got a motion and a second. Motion by Councilmember Beloga, a second by Councilmember Martin to adopt the resolution as stated by Councilmember Beloga.
Mayor, this is Lori Economy Scholler again. There was one edit on the document of the resolution I wanted to just point out on item 1.110. We changed the date on that from November 24th from tomorrow's date. The HRA board actually approved pledging the TIF on November 10th. So we moved it from the 24th to the 10th. So the HRA has pledged the TIF for the payment of these bonds on that line. So that was the edit that was made.
Thank you for that correction.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. As Councilmember Beloga stated, Council, any further questions? If not, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Bowman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson? Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Before we move on to item 8.2, I'm going to make a final call in the public comment period. We are past the 20-minute period. Ms. Cheney, do we have anyone on the line to speak to public comment period?
Jerome, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy, I can hear you.
Can you make one final call for item 7.2, please?
Sure. And again, if you wish to speak for item 7.2, please press star 1. No one wishes to speak. You may continue.
Thank you, Jerome.
With that, I'll close item 7.2, our public comment period for this evening. And we'll move to item 8.2, which is a continued public hearing to approve the feasibility study in order to the 2021 Pavement Management Program Street Reconstruction Project. We did continue this. We asked the staff to answer a couple of questions. Understanding and recognizing some of the financial hardship, we asked staff to look at some options or possibilities about ways that we could lessen this financial hardship on residents with who are facing their pavement management reconstruction projects in front of their homes this year. So I believe Mr. Brian Hansen is here to lead us through this one. Mr. Hansen, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Give me 1 second here as I pull up my presentation. All right. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are. You're ready to go.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you again. This is Brian Hansen, Development Coordinator here at the city. Let's see if I can advance my slide here. Bear with me here. Oh, I'm the presenter. I can share here this way. I apologize. One last click and then we'll get going here. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As Mayor Busey mentioned, we were at City Council here on November 9th to ask you to consider ordering of the 2021 PMP reconstruction project. At that time, given the current pandemic and economic issues created by it, council had asked staff to explore ways to provide economic assistance to those who may need additional help in paying an assessment if it was levied at that time. So staff went back and explored 3 different options. The options we looked at were to defer the certification of the entire assessment roll until 2022. We also looked at an assessment loan program. And the last option we looked at was to expand our existing hardship deferment program. So I'm going to go in and talk about each of the 3 options we looked at in a little more detail here. Option A was to defer the certification of the entire assessment roll until 2022. With this option, the assessment roll certification will be moved from its typical October timeline, so October of 2021, and that would be pushed out to March of 2022. An advantage of going this route to provide some assistance would be it would treat all properties the same. So all properties, residential and commercial, would all be treated the same. It would allow us to allow for tax-exempt bonds to still be issued in the spring of 2022, and it would not inhibit the cash flow for future construction projects. It does provide a larger prepayment window. So using this option for the 2020 assessments that were levied in October, on a typical schedule, when those are levied in early October, we have until November 29th for that prepayment window, which is typically 7 to 8 weeks from the levying of the assessment to the certification. So with the 2020 assessment, that window is actually closing on Wednesday due to the holiday. And actually, just as a side note here, we have received 40% of those assessments that were assessed this past October have prepaid already. So a majority of those have paid in full for their assessments, and we've received some partial payments as well. But with this, if we were to delay the certification of the assessment roll until March 2022, it would give from March 2022 until November 29th of 2022 for that prepayment window, which would extend that to roughly 7 to 8 months as opposed to 7 to 8 weeks it is right now. So it would give property owners who are subject to an assessment more time to save and possibly pay down some of that assessment or the entire assessment with no interest applied. As I mentioned before, the first payment would be due with the property taxes would move from May 2022 out to May 2023 if the certification of the roll was delayed until the spring. There would be an additional interest or carrying cost for assessed properties with this. Right now, with our current schedule, when the roll is certified in October, that first year interest is actually calculated over 15 months because it's the 3 months of 2020 as the previous year plus the full year, the 12 months for the subsequent year. So right now, our current schedule, that's 15 months is assessed, or the interest is applied to 15 months for that first year, and then the 12 months the preceding 9 years. With this possibility, again, that interest would go to would add an additional 9 months, so it would be 21 months of interest. So that equates to roughly $90, an additional $90 on an average assessment. So again, with that a larger prepayment window, if someone were to prepay $100, they would essentially cover that additional interest that would be applied if they were to not pay any of that prior to that prepayment window closing. So option B is an assessment loan program. This will provide short-term loans to only those that have a demonstrated need. Some benefits of this option would be it avoids additional interest costs for all project properties. So only those properties that were seeking the assessment loan program would be affected. All other properties would have the same interest applied as previous year's PMP projects. Staff has identified an internal source of revenue funds to fund this program if this were a route that the council chose to go down. One issue with this route is it does not treat all properties the same, and that comes into play when you look at the assessment rules by state statute. And depending on the number of people that would choose to participate in this program, it may make the may need to issue taxable bonds as opposed to our current tax exempt bonds. There are overhead costs that are associated with the assessment loan program. It is, in doing some analysis for a typical loan, for a typical assessment, we'd be looking at a roughly $600 loan for that first year of their assessment payable. And the administration costs for a $600 loan come out to roughly $200. So you can see that there are some overhead costs that are a good portion of the actual loan amount itself. And we also think there may be some difficulty in finding a servicer to administer this loan, given other newly created loan programs. And it could pose challenges to staff to be able to certify the eligibility of applicants. The last option we looked at was option C, which is expanding the existing hardship deferment program. Again, a benefit of this is it would avoid additional interest costs for all project properties and only would affect those who are seeking the hardship deferral. The current state statute does have a language in there relating to active military members and their ability to access this deferment program that is listed in state statute. Adding a COVID hardship clause to our existing hardship deferral program, again, would not treat all properties the same, and again, may cause that same issue with making our current non-taxable bonds into taxable bonds, depending on the number of people who participate in the program. Another big thing to point out with the hardship deferral program is when a assessment it goes into hardship deferral, the entire balance of that deferred assessment must be paid when that assessment comes out of deferment, along with the accumulated interest. And that's due whenever the person or persons that are in the hardship deferral program no longer meet those criteria, or if the property is sold. So if we were to establish a COVID hardship, if that was the reason for that person or property being in deferral, when that situation no longer exists, then that assessment will become due, and the option of spreading that out and paying it out over 10 years no longer applies. So I think that's an important thing to point out in this option. So in conclusion, tonight staff again recommends the council approve the feasibility report and adopt the resolution ordering the 2021 Pavement Management Program Street Reconstruction Project. Staff also recommends following up with the City Council in late July of 2021 to consider implementing an assessment relief program if it's determined it's needed. And if assessment relief is desired, staff would recommend option A, which would be deferring the certification of the entire assessment roll to the spring of 2022. And staff is also recommending modifying the existing assessment hardship deferral program to include the military personnel language as stated in state statute currently. And actually staff is working on drafting that language to bring to council here at a future council meeting. So tonight, I do a recommended motion for you in front of you, and I'm available as well as other staff to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Council questions? And actually, I'll kick it off. If you could just clarify a bit, and you go back to your conclusions page, if you could please, Mr. Hanson. So you're recommending that we adopt the PMP reconstruction projects tonight, which I understand. The second bullet, the following up with the City Council in July 2021. So is what you're saying with that bullet is that basically a decision isn't necessarily needed tonight, but we could rather wait 8 months until July of 2021 to consider this. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, because we would come at a typical schedule. We would present send out the notice of public hearing and hold a public hearing for an assessment and send out those notices of the final assessment amount to property owners in mid-October, early to mid-September. So yes, staff would recommend coming back in July, and that would give enough time to, if it was the desire of the council, to continue on our normal schedule and be able to calculate those final assessment amounts and send out those notices on our typical schedule, or if it was determined that the council wanted to delay certification until March or spring of 2022, we could do so at that time as well.
Thank you. That's helpful and clarifies things a bit. Council, any questions of Mr. Hanson on this? Councilmember Nelson, is that an old hand or a new hand? That is an old hand. Council, anything additional? So the recommendation here, staff recommending that we adopt the resolution, but understanding that we can basically come back to this next summer in July of 2021, be able to take a second look at things, be able to take a look at the economic conditions, where we stand with the pandemic, where we stand with everything else, and if need be, adopt some possible mitigations to the economic impact on folks regarding the pavement management program. Councilmember Nelson, now I'm confused. Is that a new hand? No.
Yeah, Mayor, that's a new hand.
Very good. Councilmember Nelson.
I had a question with regards to 108th Street. I know a survey was going to be done there, and I just was wondering if we had the results back or what the timing of that was.
Mr. Hanson?
Yeah, Councilmember Nelson, Mr. Mayor, I would defer that question. I believe Darren Rezak, the project engineer, is on the call as well. He may be able to provide some more information on that.
Mayor, member councils, good evening. The letter got finalized the end of last week, so we'd be looking to send that out early this week with results. I believe we gave them about a 2-week time frame to respond back to the survey.
Thank you. And one other follow-up question. If the neighborhood wants the wider street, are there other alternatives that we could look at for traffic calming? I know that's a big concern for that street, given the commercial node that's right there, and put some traffic onto the street there.
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Nelson, the survey that was sent out was the 32-foot width, and then the two options was the 32-foot width as well as the 28-foot width. And with the neighborhood putting their desired side of the street for where that would be signed as no parking. But there are other options for doing bump outs, things of that nature that could be incorporated into the final design.
At that point, I would just ask, once you have survey results, if you could let me know, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Council, additional questions? So now this officially we closed the public hearing on this at our last meeting, but I know that it was listed here on the agenda as a public hearing on this. So what I would like to do is kind of open an abbreviated public hearing, if I could, to see if there's anybody on the line who is tuned in for this and would like to comment on this. So, Ms. Cheney, is there anyone for item 8.2 who would like to talk on item 8.2?
Jerome, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy, I can hear you.
Jerome, can you please see if there's anyone interested in speaking to item 8.2?
Sure. Anyone who wishes to speak for item 8.2, please press star 1. And excuse me, Jane Bishop wishes to speak for item 8.2. Your line's now open.
Oh, good evening. Again, I spoke a couple weeks ago. My name is Jane Bishop, and I am on staff at Christ the King Lutheran Church, and we are on the corner of 86 and Fremont. And I tuned in specifically just to hear what kind of options would be available. And listening to Brian, we renew our objection to the project from Girard to Lindale, and more specifically the heavy burden of the tax assessed. So I just wanted to say that one more time, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the conversation.
And I appreciate your phone call, Ms. Bishop, and I understand your concern. I certainly do, and it's always a tricky one when people are on corners, when they're affected by a couple of different projects, but it's an especially tricky one when there's 4 different lots, as is the case with Christ the King. And so it's I'm afraid this might be a difficult situation that we may or may not be able to work our way out of. I just don't see how we can work our way out, considering the equity, considering the looking at the totality of the project and how it specifically applies across the city when we're talking about specific different lots on the different streets. And I'm afraid that's just kind of a quirk of this one, and it looks like you're going to be caught on the bad side of the quirk, and I do apologize for that, but it looks like that's the way it's going to work out.
Am I still on?
Yes, you are.
Oh gosh, I didn't know I had an opportunity for a dialogue, but yes, we appreciate that and understand that, and when I was listening to Brian's options, it doesn't like we were thinking about, perhaps when he was talking about expanding the hardship program, that still doesn't apply to anyone that is not residential. So we were hoping for something in that category. But
well, thank you, Ms. Bishop. I again appreciate your input and appreciate your call.
I thank you again for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Ms. Cheney, is there anyone else who would like to speak on item 8.2?
Jerome, is there anyone else wishing to speak to item 8.2?
No one wishes to speak. You may continue.
Thank you.
No one's coming forward. No one's coming forward on item 8.2. So 8.2, excuse me. So I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing. Council.
So moved, Councilmember Lohman.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Carter to close the public hearing on item 8.2. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson? Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing on item 8.2. Council, any additional discussion on this item? Councilmember Martin and then Councilmember Beloga. Councilmember Martin.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just real briefly, I just wanted to say thank you so much to staff. I feel like the options that were put forward, especially option A, really got to kind of the heart of what we were talking about. And I know, especially now, kind of in all this craziness, to walk that fine line of keeping up with our investments in this critical infrastructure, while being mindful to the precarious spot that a lot of our residents are in. So I'm sure that wasn't easy, and thank you for being so responsive to the conversation we had last time around.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Beloga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two items. First is, I believe that the first option applied to all properties. Am I correct in that, or is that incorrect?
No, I believe as it was presented, it does apply to all properties under this 2021-101 Pavement Management Program Street Reconstruction Project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that would be an option for benefiting the church.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, you cut on your last part of that sentence. An option for what? We may have lost Councilmember Beloga.
Mayor, if I could, Councilmember Lohman, I think what he said, is that an option for the church?
Yes, absolutely. It would apply to everyone covered under this resolution. Absolutely. All the properties covered under this resolution. Yes.
And so the impact for the church would be that they would be able to, along with other folks, to be able to make this payment at a later time.
That's correct. If we decide to move forward with this resolution with the understanding that we can come back in July of 2021 and look at this again, it would then affect the September issuance, which would have moved it from all the way to March of 2023, basically, before payments would begin for all properties in this project. We'll give Councilmember Beloga just another minute here, see if he can come back on. I think he had a second question, he said. In the meantime, does anyone else have any additional questions? Oh, there he's back. Councilmember Beloga.
I am, Mr. Mayor, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you, Councilmember Beloga.
I don't know what happened, but I lost audio. So wouldn't another option for the church to solve this issue be to replat their parcels into a single parcel? And maybe the city manager could respond to that one.
Mr. Brugge?
Mr. Mayor and council members, Councilmember Beloga, we haven't looked at the different options that might be available. I can go back to staff and ask them to research that a little bit more. Maybe Mr. Hanson knows right off the top of his head. But I think the key here for the council is for this discussion to get confidence that there are several different options for how we handle any hardships or deferrals, and know that there are options available since we don't actually have to make the decision about what policy we will select until August of next year. Brian, did you have any thoughts along the different parcels?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. The church parcel itself is one parcel. They do have 4 frontages, though, and I think that's the distinction there. It is actually one parcel, so replatting, there'd be no need to replat. It is one parcel. However, the way that the church is situated, the lot with the public right-of-way that surrounds it, it actually has 4 adjusted front footages when we get into our AFF calculations, which we've gone over before in front of council. So that is why they're subject to multiple assessments on multiple streets. It's not the platting of the lot itself. It's actually the number of frontages that the lot has.
My apologies, Councilmember.
Brian?
That's on me. I misstated it, Councilmember Beloga. I misheard or misunderstood what was said at our last meeting, but it's I apologize for that.
No, I did also, that, which is why I asked the question and appreciate the answer. Thank you, Brian.
Council, any additional questions? Hearing none, Council, I would look for action on this.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to adopt a resolution ordering the 2021-101 Pavement Management Program Street Reconstruction Project.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Beloga and a second by Councilmember Carter to adopt the resolution ordering the 2021 Pavement Management Program Reconstruction Project. Hearing no further discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Busse?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I'd like to echo Councilmember Martin's thanks to staff on that one. I think you did a very nice job to bring forward different options and look at possibilities, understanding and recognizing the concerns that we heard from residents and the concerns that the council had about moving this forward, especially in this very difficult economic time for a lot of folks. So thank you to staff for that and for the work that you've done on this. We can move now to another public hearing on the ordinance of a temporary pandemic response housing. This was another one that I think, opened on November 9th, and we laid over until tonight for a variety of different reasons because I think the Planning Commission was going to take this up in a variety of different ways. So we will turn this over now to, who is this, I believe?
Julie Farnham.
Julie Farnham, thank you. I was looking, I just couldn't find your name on my list here. Ms. Farnham,
Sure.
Good evening and welcome. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor Busse and members of the council. I am Julie Farnham, one of the city's senior planners, and I will be presenting this item, which is continued from your November 9th meeting. And let me just get my presentation up here. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we are. I think you're ready to go.
All right, great. So this is a proposed city code amendments related to temporary pandemic response housing.
Ms. Farnham, if I can interrupt for just a second, you've got the main slide up, but you've also got next slide. You've got your next slide panel up as well to the right of that. If you could close that.
Sure, let me see if I can figure that out. I think how's that look?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry for that, technical difficulties. So I will be doing the main presentation, but I am joined here by a few other staff who can answer questions if needed. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context here. So the original ordinance was really crafted in response to a proposal by the county to purchase the extended stay property, and that was scheduled for original public hearing before the Planning Commission on November 5th. Right before that hearing, the county withdrew their proposal, and in part because of that, the Planning Commission thought it was best to just kind of take a pause, and they recommended continuing of the item to their November 19th meeting, which was last Thursday. So last Thursday, then they did take action on a narrowed version of the original ordinance, which we call Option A, and that was included in your packet. And it really focuses on items that we would consider kind of cleanup, more related to modifying existing definitions and adding penalty language. The Planning Commission also directed staff to prepare a new ordinance focused on the proposed new interim use, the temporary pandemic response housing, and bring that back for public hearing at their January 14th meeting. That ordinance, once drafted, would be noticed appropriately. We would also do some outreach to affected property owners and hotels in the city. So I'm going to just provide an overview of what the Planning Commission recommended. So again, they recommended a slimmed down version of the original ordinance, which we're calling Option A. And it really consists of kind of two parts. There's the modifications to a handful of existing definitions. These aren't really substantive changes and really reflect our longstanding interpretation. They provide clarity that we think provides needed transparency and also can aid in enforcement. The other piece is really to add the standard penalty clause language. This language is included in several other city code chapters. For whatever reason, it was never incorporated into chapters 19 and 21, which are the chapters that deal with zoning and development. So digging down a little bit more into what's actually in Option A. So there's a couple of different definitions proposed to be modified, starting with congregate living facility, basically clarification to what is and what is not included in this use type. Government facilities general, adding language to clarify that these are non-residential uses. The code currently has two definitions related to hotels. One, full service hotel, we're proposing to delete because it's really redundant. It's not necessary and is pretty much incorporated under the other definition, which we're proposing to modify. For one, to shorten it, it currently includes a reference to a motor hotel, which is an outmoded term. And then also adding clarification to the term of occupancy, making that clear that that is 30 days or less. And once again, clarifying what is and what is not included in this type of use. And the other piece of Option A, as I said before, is the addition of the penalty clause to both Chapter 19 and 21. And with that, again, the Planning Commission recommended to the City Council approval of this Option A, and I have a motion teed up accordingly. There is also in your packet a resolution of summary publication, and there's a motion to that effect as well. So I will stop there and open it up for questions.
Council questions? Councilmember Beloga, is that a new hand or an old hand?
It is a new hand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Beloga.
Thank you. Julie, good evening. So I have a couple questions regarding congregate living versus there is a interim. I'm struggling to ask the question, but so it can be either congregate living or hotel use, but not both concurrently. Is that correct?
Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Beloga, I'm sorry. I'm not sure I heard the entire question. You were breaking up a little bit. You said something about congregate living could be something but not something else?
Thanks for asking. No, my question is that if we have a hotel that seeks to change its status to congregate living, can it additionally be used as a hotel concurrent with the congregate living?
Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Beloga, no. In fact, if the proposed language to be added, the modification to congregate living makes it clear that congregate living does not include a hotel or temporary pandemic response housing. So
it's either or is the...
Right, they're two different things, if that answers your question. They're two different uses.
Yes, and so a hotel cannot have, for instance, 2 floors of hotel and 2 floors of congregate living if it's 4-story.
That is correct.
Thank you. The period of time. How was 2 years selected? It seems like an awfully long period of time, especially in light of when we look at the distribution of vaccines. The second tier of vaccines include homeless, and that's
Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Beloga, you're breaking up a little bit, but I heard you ask why 2 years? Why was that duration recommended in the original ordinance? And I do want to just make clear before I answer that, and that none of the language in the original ordinance that is pertaining to the new interim use is included in option A. So I just want to make that very clear. But the 2-year duration, I think, was in part, so an IUP generally, the standard IUP language in the code allows an IUP for up to 5 years. The council and the planning commission can recommend something less than that, depending on the circumstances. The 2 years, I believe, was felt an adequate amount of time, given the time it would take to convert something to this, and then have the shelter, and then make sure that there was enough time to transition to something else. So that's my initial thought. I know perhaps Glenn or Megan or Heather, who were also involved in some of the early discussions around this ordinance, have some, maybe can add something to that.
Ms. Worthington?
Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Beloga, I would just add that I think this was really trying to take into account the sort of predicted length of a pandemic. So just to give you an idea of the current situation, we're about not quite a year into the COVID-19 pandemic. According to our public health personnel, we probably have another 6 months or so. And so we were anticipating that the arc of pandemic situation would likely be somewhere in the range of 2 years in terms of that cycle of people being homeless and then acquiring permanent supportive housing.
Councilmember Beloga, are you back with us?
Follow-up question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please, Councilmember Beloga.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Follow-up question. So these are really temporary homeless shelters. It's not that the other homeless shelters, the majority of which are in downtown Minneapolis, were insufficient to handle the needs, as I understand it. It was the ability to, during COVID, space people out. So since COVID has a life cycle that we hope and anticipate will be shortened with the vaccine, and since the 4-tier nation priorities, which will most likely occur in the first or second quarter of 2021, it seems as if this may be what you're saying.
Councilmember
Mayor
Beloga, you broke up a couple of times there, Jack. Could you summarize very quickly what you said there? I think we got the gist of it, but your basic question is why a 2-year time period here? Is that correct, Jack?
Yeah, it's just that with the evolving information that's now available with a shorter window rather than a longer window of 2 years continue being in make.
Ms.
Mayor
Worthington,
Bussey,
are you able to answer that? Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Beloga. Yes, with regard to COVID, this type of strain of SARS COVID will have a vaccine in place. There may be different pandemics in the future that will not have a vaccine immediately, much like the situation we're in right now. And so this anticipates a different type of contagion that might occur in the future and create a pandemic situation or other emergency type of situation. So that's the kind of thinking behind the 2-year limit. Again, as Julie pointed out, in Bloomington, it's an up to 5-year interim use permit provision in ordinance. So this is significantly less than that. But again, wanting to be realistic in terms of the need of the community in terms of providing shelter or socially distant shelter in the case of an infectious outbreak like COVID or some other kind of virus.
Mayor Bussey and Councilmember Beloga, if I could just expand on that a little bit, I just want to also say that this is as proposed in the original ordinance, the maximum of 2 years is a maximum. The City Council could approve something less than 2 years as well, looking at the facts. So there's findings that have to be made when you're approving an interim use permit similar to a conditional use permit. And the specific circumstance could suggest a shorter time period. And so the council would have the discretion to perhaps do something less than. You would want to make sure that there was good, there was good findings for doing that, though.
Good points. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a few questions here quick. First, just for clarification, the 2-year issue and all of the changes that were related to the pandemic, that is not what was recommended by Planning Commission, correct? They're going to revisit that in January. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, Mayor Bussey, Council Member Nelson. Yes, that is correct. So the ordinance as originally drafted really kind of consisted of two parts. There's this part that we are calling the shortened version, option A, which really dealt with more cleanup sorts of issues, the definitional modifications, and the penalty clause. The rest of the original ordinance really focused on the creation of the new interim use category for temporary pandemic response housing and the related standards that would go along with that use. So that portion of the ordinance, the Planning Commission, it's essentially a new ordinance. Planning Commission asked staff to go back and make some changes and bring back a new ordinance essentially for public hearing in January.
Okay, quick follow-up question on that. What is the advantage to the city of moving this definition part ahead at this time versus just waiting until they come back with the fully cooked version?
Sure, Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Nelson. I will start this, and then I think I would hand it off to Megan Rogers to give you the legal interpretation. So really, there is no, again, the option A portions are really considered kind of cleanup items that don't materially really affect the creation of a new interim use permit category. So they can be handled separately. Part of the reason we put them together in the first place was because it was going along faster. Last week also at Planning Commission, they considered their annual, which they do annually, the cleanup ordinance, the miscellaneous issues ordinance, which will probably be coming to you in a few weeks. Some of these changes here are the types of things we would have included in that ordinance, but because this ordinance was originally teed up to go on a faster timeline, we included it in the original ordinance. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Megan Rogers to see if she has anything else to add.
Ms. Rogers, good evening.
Mayor, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Nelson, members of council. The additional language helps to clarify what has been the longstanding city interpretation of the transitory nature of hotel uses. And by clarifying this language, it will assist the city with enforcement. And furthermore, specifically adding those penalty clauses allows us to use our civil fines mechanism and the associated mediation process associated with that.
Okay, that's very helpful. I appreciate that. One last question. During the conversation earlier, or the questions, it was referred to several times what the county is doing, what is happening in these hotels as shelters. And in the congregate living facility definition, the word shelters has been added. Is that consistent with the intent not to allow that type of use without further consideration by Planning Commission on how that part of the ordinance goes? I'm wondering if adding the word shelters in there opens up what is happening currently. So,
Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Nelson, I'm going to take a stab at this, and then I think I'll ask Glenn Markegard to flesh it out a bit. Shelters, we already have certain types of shelters, like state licensed shelters and such, that are very defined in terms of how many people can be there, and they are allowed via conditional use permit. And I think we wanted to include those in here just again for clarity. But Mr. Markegard, if you could expand on that.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor Bussey, Councilmember Nelson.
Good evening, Mr.
The city is always viewed. Pardon, can you hear me?
I was just saying good evening. Sorry for interrupting. My bad.
Sorry. Good evening. So the city's always considered shelters to be a form of congregate living. That's an umbrella term that covers a lot of uses. Congregate living facilities are allowed in multifamily districts as a conditional use. They are not allowed in virtually all commercial districts. So there's very little, if any, crossover between hotels and congregate living facilities. The intent was to clarify where shelters fall and where they do not fall in the various definitions in the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. So just for clarification, it seems like it says shelters aren't included in hotels then is what this cleanup definition is doing here. So is that the basic gist?
Correct. Mayor Busse, Councilmember Nelson, it's clarifying that hotel is not a shelter. Congregate living facility could be a shelter.
Thank you very much for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So real quick, the additional conversation that Planning Commission is going to be having kind of mid-January about this, do we have a rough idea of when whatever recommendations they move forward are going to be in front of council for us to take a look at? If they move forward.
Mayor Busse, Councilmember Martin, our normal schedule when we have a hearing on something is it's about 3 to 4 weeks afterwards, unless we pre-advertise. So between Planning Commission and Council. So if it goes to Planning Commission on the 14th of January, would probably be the first meeting in February, whatever the date of that. I don't know that the dates have been set yet, but that's the kind of a typical sort of a timing, a spacing between hearings at Planning Commission and City Council.
Okay. And just to make sure I've got my head on straight. So what we're looking at right here pertains specifically to situations that may involve a health contagion. So this wouldn't be things like severe economic downturns or natural disasters, things like that.
Mayor Busse, Councilmember Martin, that's correct as with the way it's defined right now.
Okay. Thank you. I don't mean to be a downer, but we've got a whole month in 2020, so who knows?
Council, additional questions? Councilmember Beloga, any additional questions?
Oh, thank you.
With that, I would like to open our public hearing on this. This is a public hearing on our ordinance regarding temporary pandemic response housing. Item 8.3 on our agenda. Ms. Cheney, do we have anyone on the line wishing to speak to item 8.3?
Jerome, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy, I can hear you.
Thank you. Can you see if there are any callers wishing to speak to item 8.3?
No one joined for item 8.3. You may continue.
Thank you.
Council, no one coming forward to speak electronically or virtually on item 8.3. So I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Coulter.
Second, Martin.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter and a second by Councilmember Martin to close the public hearing on 8.3. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Bowman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Busse?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing on item 8.3. Council, further discussion on this? Questions, comments? Hearing none. So if you look at, we're on, it's a bit convoluted on our motion sheet, but on page 301 and then bleeding onto page 302 on the council packet, it basically shows where we are. So the Planning Commission has recommended City Council approval of code amendments related to definitions in the penalty clause, which is ordinance option A. And so if the council was in agreement with that, that would be the motion we would be making. So council, I would either look for additional discussion or questions or some action on this.
Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion here. If nobody else is stepping up.
Councilmember Coulter.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve the attached ordinance option A, modifying definitions and adding language pertaining to penalties, thereby amending chapters 19 and 21 of the City Code.
Do we have a second?
Second, Councilmember Lohman.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Coulter and a second by Councilmember Lohman to modify the definitions and add language pertaining to penalties, thereby amending chapters 19 and 21 of the City Code. Further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga. Thank you. Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Coulter, summary publication.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the attached resolution directing summary publication of an ordinance relating to zoning definitions and adding a penalty clause, thereby amending chapters 19 and 21 of the City Code.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter and a second by Councilmember Carter for summary publication. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga. Councilmember Beloga. Maybe we will circle back. Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye.
Beluga.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0. I think Councilmember Beloga is switching devices electronically, so I think we're going to catch up a little bit. So very good. So thank you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you on that. Thank you very much to staff for your work on that one.
Thank you.
We are going to move now to the amended portion of our agenda, where we agreed at the start of the meeting that we were going to move 8.6 and 8.7 up in the agenda. So right now I'd like to call item 8.6, which is a public hearing resolution regarding the proposed changes to fees and charges schedule. And that, I believe, is Kari Carlson, our budget manager, is it not?
Mayor, this is Chief Financial Officer Lori Economy-Scholler. I'll be joining you on this item.
Oh, Ms. Economy-Scholler.
Amy, can you let me share my screen?
Yes, just one moment. Okay, you should be good to go.
Mayor and Council, annually we bring our fee schedule to the City Council for approval at a public hearing. While a few weeks ago, we sent out that through the One Weekly, and then we also sent the 16 pages on the ledger size to the council to review the small print of all those fee changes. Majority of those fee changes are in the public park and rec area. We have a few in the general fund in Parks and Rec, communication and enterprise funds. Ann Cottrey, our Park and Rec Director, is also available, and several of her staff if you have questions in regards to the fee increases in the Park and Rec area. And so in general, we'd like to take council questions and then have the public hearing. Thank you.
Council, specific questions on the proposed fee increases? Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, I know in the past we've had conversations, and this is, I suspect, a question more for our Parks and Recreation Director, but we've had conversations related to the fees at the Ice Garden at Big. And based on the information we have, it looks like I think it's a 5% increase in the schedule, is still relatively significantly below what it looks like some similar rates for communities around us are. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about why that is, and if there's any discussion about getting closer to those rates at some point.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Coulter, Mayor Busse, members of the council. We are definitely working in the direction of getting our fees up to market rate. We are proposing that we increase our fees another 5% this year. So we have had two very significant rate increases over the last 2 years. We also have some facility improvements to make. We do have 3 sheets of ice, which is very comparable with the best facilities in town, but some of our facilities aren't quite up to the standards of some of those other facilities. But we do feel that a 5% rate increase is very significant for our user groups at this stage.
So just to clarify, then it sounded to me, based on your comments, that the plan is to get closer to some of those other facilities in the near future, but you're kind of working your way up. Is that correct?
Councilmember Coulter, yes, that is correct.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick questions here. In aquatics, we have the swim teams that use that are non-resident swim teams. And I am wondering if we have any indication of how our rate compares to other 50-meter pools, which I understand there aren't too many of in the area. If we're low there, or if we're comparable, do we know what other pools are charging for that?
Councilmember Nelson, Mayor Busse, members of the council, I have Allison Warren on the call. Allison, would you be available to answer that question, please?
Absolutely. We contacted the other metro pools that have 50-meter swim team rentals today and did not hear back from them prior to this meeting. But we are of the understanding that we are at a comparable rate as we've done studies in the past, but don't have that information available right now.
Okay. On the golf rates, I noted that one of our youth organizations that uses the BAA program, they were taken off of the fee schedule. And so what rate would they be paying per person this next year for their program?
Peter, if you would, please.
Councilmember Nelson, the rate as proposed would be in alignment. All our junior fees would be the same. So if approved, our rate at Highland Greens would be $14 per player, and the rate at Dwan would be $20 per player.
So if I understand correctly, that's about a $3 increase, at least at Highland. I don't know how to see it right in front of me for Dwan, but or just about 30% increase.
It's a $2 increase at Highland, and also a $2 increase at.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. My last question is, and I had got the answer to this a little bit, but what I'm trying to figure out is how to separate this fee from that budget discussion, because some of these things overlay in terms of the options that the Community Budget Advisory Committee gave us. And so some of those are integrated into this, and then maybe some would be made separately through the budget discussion. I'm just trying to figure out how, maybe that's a question more for the mayor or city manager of how we're working through that process.
Mr. Mayor and council members, Councilmember Nelson, that's a good question. As you note in several of the recommendations, you'll see that the proposed increase is actually in the area of scenario B or scenario C, and the council obviously hasn't made a decision yet about which of the options and hasn't really discussed whether they're going to move items around. What I would suggest doing is if you're comfortable taking action tonight, and then at the time that we adopt the budget and some of these fees are considered as part of those options, we can address those at that time and then come back and make an adjustment to them if the council deems that appropriate. Does that sound acceptable, Mr. Mayor and council members?
I think that makes sense. It gives us additional flexibility as we continue our discussion on the budget. Council in agreement on that? I don't hear anyone screaming no, so I'll take that as a yes. We'll continue with the added flexibility and continue our discussions in that way. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. So similar to Councilmember Coulter's question, but kind of at a higher level, would you say most of the Parks and Recs fee increases are to get us kind of more at that level with the current market rate, the trends that we're seeing in other communities?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Carter. Members of the council, yes, that is definitely the attempt. We have been doing a lot of work over the last 2 years to research market rates and to slowly work to increase our fees to market rates. Also, as we've had many conversations with the City Council over the past 6 months or so, as it relates to the Park System Master Plan, we're working very hard on our cost recovery expectations. And this is a goal to try to get us in line with the cost recovery expectations that we would expect of the department moving forward as well.
And then just a couple other quick questions. So for the child care or for the youth programs, sorry, I've got so many papers in front of me here. So the summer playgrounds and the, good grief, I know these too, summer adventure playgrounds and the View, Mini View, those fees are for the entire summer, right? And then Camp Coda and Coda Kids would be weekly fees, correct?
Councilmember Carter, that is correct.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. When I saw the playground fee, I was like, oh, that can't be weekly. So, and then for the organizations that would be paying the 15% of the standard fee, have we already identified who those organizations are? How could organizations become qualified to kind of fit in that bucket to pay the 15%?
Councilmember Carter, thanks for the question. We do have an athletic field use policy that identifies what would qualify an athletic youth organization to be recognized. They have to have a specific number of participants that are Bloomington residents, as well as be a nonprofit and a couple other requirements. We currently have 7 of them right now, and if anyone else were interested, they would be able to qualify based on those qualifications listed in the field use policy.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Beloga, did you have a question?
Mr. Mayor, I did not. Thank you.
Councilmember Lohman.
Thank you. So I just had just a real brief question. Just kind of looking through these fees, I'm just curious, in other cities, do they use other categories? For example, I did notice that in aquatics, they had, senior across one of the fees here. But do other cities break down some of these fees and use categories such as veteran and other categories that we're not currently utilizing to either distinguish those fees or to capture additional revenue in different ways to provide different experiences for different residents? I'm not necessarily looking for an answer today, but I'm just curious if other cities use other classification rather than just the ones we have now, like youth, adult, and those.
Councilmember Lohman, I'd be happy to answer that question for you. It is not unusual that different cities will have different classifications, and then it's also not unusual that different programs or different facilities within a city would have different classifications as well. I think a really good example is what we have for the pool. You're seeing some really inexpensive rates because we have a variety of different pricing classifications for the pool, and we're the only city that has that type of a classification. Other facilities have one fee for everyone across the board. Some cities do have rates for veterans. I don't think it's terribly common, but it's not uncommon either. The other big difference that I think is probably the biggest difference that some cities have and some don't is resident rate versus non-resident rate. But those are really the biggest classification differences.
Thanks for bringing that up. I wonder kind of long term, again, not today, I know these are some of the things that are out there. If we want to look at some of that stuff, to be an advantage. I know certainly we've got that in the aquatic pieces, but I just wonder if there are some advantages to bringing some of those classifications in or paring those back. I'm just curious what the market is kind of demanding and what I know some private institutions utilize that. I wonder if that might help us with some of our golf courses, maybe some other pieces, kind of looking at some of those different classifications to help to drive revenue. But not a discussion for today, but just a curiosity question for myself.
That's great. We will definitely be thinking of those things, Councilmember Lohman, as we move forward in the standardization of our fees. Thank you for the question and comment.
Council, additional questions? If not, this is a public hearing, and I'd like to open the public hearing on item 8.6, which is a resolution regarding the proposed changes to fees and charges schedule. Ms. Cheney, do we have anyone on the line who would like to speak to item 8.6?
Jerome, this is Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amy, I can hear you.
Do we have anyone wishing to speak to item 8.6?
No one joined for this item. You may continue.
Thank you.
We have no one on the line looking to speak to item 8.6. So, Council, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Beloga, second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Beloga to close the public hearing on item 8.6. Hearing no further discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing on item 8.6. Council, discussion on this. In years past, as I recall, the discussion on specific fees and charges have led to a lengthy discussion at some point. People with concerns, questions, ideas about what the charges should be, and I think this is a difficult one, and I know it can be difficult because it's a balance between trying to recover as much of the cost as possible and to increase revenue as much as possible without reaching that tipping point where you either move past the market in general or the specific market for the the product that you're offering. And so I know that it's a difficult thing for staff to try and balance that and work toward the goals of the council of the maximizing revenue, but also understanding that you don't want to raise the fees to the point where you don't recover the money that you were hoping to make because the number of, for example, golf rounds drops off significantly because of the price increase. So, council, any questions or discussions on this? Councilmember Lohman?
I guess the question that I would ask staff, just a general question, given what we know now, given the pandemic, would there be anything that you would have done differently given these fees? And then I'd also be curious about what you're thinking about in terms of moving into next year's fees, if that's going to be impacted by what's happening this year.
Ms. Catching?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilmember Lohman. I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that we really had, until we presented our fees to the Park Commission for their approval in October, we had a lot of time over the first 6 months or so of this pandemic to review our fees and to really look at our business, our operations, and our budgets going into 2021. So I think it's very safe to say that staff feels very comfortable with the fees that we're proposing before you this evening. And we did actually, over that period of 6 months, have many conversations with our staff team, and we made many revisions. But we do feel very comfortable with what we're proposing this evening. And we will definitely continue as we work our way through the Park System Master Plan and our pricing strategies and our cost recovery expectations. Look forward to many continued conversations with the City Council over the next several months to really solidify our plan for pricing moving forward.
Ms. Economy Scholler, did you want to weigh in on that at all?
Mayor Bussey and council members, that is very consistent with all the other departments that are increasing their fees, is that they have had considerable amount of time to look at what we're bringing forth with the budgets and considering moving forward with those. So yes, we're comfortable with what is in the fee schedule.
Council, additional questions? Hearing none, I'd look for action on this, council.
Mayor, I'd be happy to offer a motion to adopt a resolution approving the 2021 schedule of fees and charges for services provided by departments and divisions of the city of Bloomington, Minnesota, other than those otherwise established by ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Beloga. I see Councilmember Nelson has a question. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I'll support this, but I do want to, as part of the budget conversation, come back to one of the items, maybe a couple, but in particular that were on the recommendations by the Budget Advisory Committee related to increased or new charges to youth sports groups and things of that nature. I brought that up when we had the budget conversation and think that merits some additional conversation, and including the golf in that as well. But at this time, I think the recommendation to do this, and then we'll reconfirm or make changes when we have that budget conversation is good advice, and I'll go that direction.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Any additional questions? If not, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2021 schedule of fees and charges for services provided by departments and divisions of the city of Bloomington, other than those otherwise established by ordinance. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We can move on then to, a part of our amended agenda to item 8.7, which is another public hearing, an ordinance amending chapters 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10 of the City Code, which would create a fee schedule appendix. Ms. Economy Scholler.
Mayor Bussey and council members, throughout the year, we have a number of fee schedules that come to the city council. Finance is working with our legal department, and legal is systematically reviewing each chapter of the city code to relocate and reference all the fees to an appendix A. So at this point, we're going through is chapters 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10. Hopefully this spring we can bring you back another chapter or two as we get into chapter 11. There's a lot more financial references and forward through the rest of the code. So at this point, we're bringing you these chapters, and the city attorney, Melissa Manderscheid, might have a comment or two if you would like to.
Ms. Manderscheid.
Mayor, members, this was one of the things we had talked about internally as an organization probably 18 months ago or so. And part of the reason driving this was, the two reasons driving this are first, this offers an easier way for staff to systematically review those fees on an annual basis instead of having to search for them in the code. But then the other reason is that by relocating them to one document, we can annually update them in a more systematic way instead of doing it on step by step, because each time we do it individually, we have to pay to publish a public hearing notice as well as the document after it's been adopted by the council. So this is also a cost-saving measure as well.
And I was also add under our strategic priority of transparency, once we put this all in an appendix A, any resident can go to this appendix and look at all of our fees as part of our transparency goal too.
Very good. Council, questions on item 8.7? Hearing none, this is a public hearing, and I'd like to open the public hearing now on item 8.7, an ordinance amending chapters 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10 of the City Code, creating a fee schedule appendix. Ms. Cheney, do we have anyone on the line who wishes to speak to item 8.7?
Jerome, this is Amy. Do you have anyone wishing to speak to item 8.7?
No one joined for this item. You may continue.
Thank you.
Council, no one coming forward to address the public hearing? With that, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Councilmember Lohman.
Second, Martin.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Martin to close the public hearing on item 8.7. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion to close the public hearing out of 8.7 passes 7-0. Council discussion, questions on this? I think it's pretty straightforward and actually makes some good sense to create the fee schedule appendix. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, not only for staff and for council to take a look at, but certainly for residents to know where they can find their fee schedules and how much it's going to cost to do X, Y, or Z. To have it all in one place, I think just makes things a lot easier and makes good sense to do this. And just a good continued cleanup and simplification and making a bit more transparent and easier to use of our city code. Anything else to add, council? If not, I'd look for action.
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Councilmember Lohman.
To adopt an ordinance amending chapters 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10 of the city code and creating a fee schedule appendix.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Carter to adopt an ordinance amending chapters 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10 of the city code, creating a fee schedule appendix. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Lohman, summary publication.
Move to adopt a resolution directing summary publication for the ordinance for amending chapters 1, 2, 5, 9, and 10 of the city code and creating a fee schedule appendix.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Carter for the summary publication. No further discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson? Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. With our amended agenda, we're going to double back to item 8.4 now, which is another public hearing, and this is an ordinance to increase water rates. And this is Kari Carlson, our budget manager. I'm sorry I tried to call on you a little bit too early, Ms. Carlson. Kari Carlson is going to lead us through this. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amy, could you give me, oh, I got the right. Thank you.
Yeah, I can do that. If I could, Council, I'm going to suggest, why don't we, if we could, why don't we combine 8.4 and 8.5 into a single public hearing? Maybe I'll if I could recall the item and call it for 8.4, the public hearing to increase water rates, and 8.5, a public hearing, an ordinance to increase solid waste and refuse collection fees. Why don't we get, I'll call these together. Why don't we get the presentations, and then we'll open the public hearing to hear on both items at the same time, if everyone's amenable to that. We will plan on that. Ms. Carlson.
All right, thank you. So this is a presentation for the 2021 utility rates and corresponding utility fund budgets. And I will be highlighting information that I previously shared with you at the October 12th council study meeting. So here are the 4 utility funds: water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste. The water utility fund accounts for the costs related to the operation, maintenance, and renewal of the water system. This is a chart showing 2019 and 2020 water distribution compared to a 7-year average. The blue line is the 7-year average. The orange line shows 2019 water distribution. And 2019 was the wettest year on record, which is why water sales were below the 7-year average. And 2020 is the gray line, which is also trending below the 7-year average. This next chart demonstrates that Bloomington continues to provide softened water at a relatively low cost. You can see on this chart, Bloomington has the second lowest softened water rate. A key driver of water rates is the need to generate enough revenue to build reserves for repairs and replacements of infrastructure. So this graph shows that if we were to replace all of the water infrastructure assets based on their strict end-of-life estimates, we would have significant spikes in spending, which is represented by that blue line. The orange line shows the plan of how we can fund replacement by using asset management tools and plan gradual increases. Here we just have, for your reference, the water rate increases over the past few years. So there were 9.5% increases from 17 through 19 for each year, and then 2020 had an 8.5% increase. For 21, we are recommending increases of 3% for the Tier 1 and Tier 2. So this is lower than in past years, as I just showed. Also lower than what we had been projecting in the long-term plan, but we are very mindful of the economic impact of the pandemic. So this is a 2021 budget model for the water fund, and it is anticipating similar water usage patterns of recent years and includes projected revenues of around 16.3 million. The proposed expenses are around 17.2 million, which include upcoming capital water projects of around 2.7 million. So with the wet weather we've been experiencing and lower demand for water and smaller rate increases than originally projected, the working capital balance, which is that line in red, it does remain positive, but is lower than the goal that we would like for this fund. So that's something we'll talk about a little bit more with the wastewater fund. So with that, we'll go on to wastewater. So the wastewater fund accounts for the sewer collection system and treatment charges from the Metropolitan Council. And the wastewater utility provides sanitary service capacity and maintenance to minimize system blockages. This slide shows that Bloomington's wastewater rates are among the lowest of the peer cities. So on this chart, it is for wastewater, it's third from the left on this chart for Bloomington. And for wastewater, we're recommending that we do not increase the wastewater rates for 2021. And this is the wastewater long-term budget model. And this budget request for 21 includes proposed revenues of 13.4 million and expenses of 12.8 million. And the working capital balance is projected to be in line with the goal of this fund. So this came up during the study meeting when we talked about the utility funds, but with a healthier working capital balance in the wastewater fund, there could be an opportunity in the future, in the next couple of years, to transfer money from wastewater to the water fund if needed to help with some of the water fund's capital balance, get it closer to its goal. The third utility fund is the storm water fund, and that provides operations, maintenance, and improvements to the storm sewer system, and that's through a storm utility fee. And the storm water utility protects the public from storm water damage. Stormwater rates are determined by land use category, and they're at a per acre rate, and we are proposing a 2% increase for 2021. This graph shows an annual family stormwater utility rate, and it's comparing the Bloomington residents rate compared to some surrounding communities. So in this graph, the lowest is Champlain on the left at $37.56 per year. And Minneapolis is the highest at $201.36 per year. And then Bloomington is currently at $95.64 for 2020 and proposed to be at $97.56, that yellow bar there, for 2021. The 2021 proposed budget includes total revenue of 7.2 million and the proposed expenses of 11.5 million, and that includes 7.3 for capital projects. The working capital balance is projected to be in line with the goal of this fund. And the final utility fund is the solid waste utility fund, and that accounts for garbage recycling and yard waste, the spring curbside cleanup program, also forestry and removal of diseased trees, that's in this fund as well, cleanups after major storm events, and also private property environmental health abatements. So here's the solid waste rate structure, and garbage rates are made up of 4 components. There's collection, disposal, city administration fee, and there's also a state solid waste tax and county fee. And the collection part of that component for garbage is going to increase by 2.5%, as is set in our 2021 contract with the garbage haulers. Also for recycling, that recycling rate is made up of two components. There's collection and a recycling commodity adjustment offset. And same as the garbage collection, the recycling collection is also set to increase by 2.5%, as is in the contract for 2021 with the Garbage Haulers Consortium. So this slide shows for 21, just the combined impact of the garbage and recycling increasing. So depending on the cart size, from small to large, it can vary from 1.39% increase to 2.02, depending on the cart size. This is a chart showing Bloomington's garbage and recycling rate compared to other cities, as well as compared to when the survey was done of residents in 2015, and then that's been increased to $2020. For curbside cleanup, there will not be an increase for 2020. It will stay at $4.42 a month. This is the solid waste long-term budget model with the request for 2021 budgeted revenues at 8.2 million and total budgeted expenses at just over 8.6 million. And then I'll point out that this is the one utility fund that does have some property tax support. There is $185,000 of property tax support that's requested for forestry and removal of diseased trees. So kind of in summary, the key drivers of utility rates, there's a need to build capital reserves for repair and replacement of aging infrastructure for water, sewer, and stormwater. And also then there's the impact of those wet summers that we've been experiencing, resulting in declining water sales and revenue. And finally, just is just the example I shared previously about when you kind of put everything together and showing different samples of residential utility bills at different levels. So with a small garbage, medium garbage, large garbage, how that differs from 2020 versus 2021, and just pointing out that the utility bills are billed for residents every other month, so 6 times a year. They're billed bi-monthly. And with that, if you have any questions.
Council, questions on these two funds? These for all of Ms. Carlson's presentation. Councilmember Lohman.
So if I could, Mayor and Ms. Carlson, could we go back and have a look at the garbage cart piece? Just something that occurred to me. You had a chart there, and I just wanted to just be sure that residents were clear as to where those fees are coming from. You know, the increases that they're going to see from year to year. Is that something that the city is increasing, or is that something that's from the contract that's being asked by from our haulers and the consortium?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Lohman, I do believe Laura Horner is also on the meeting tonight. Laura, are you available?
Councilmember Lohman and Mayor, yes, you are correct there. The rates for the garbage and recycling program are set through the rates in our contract. So the increases in 2021 are coming from that 2.5% price escalator that is set in our contract. We do also have a city administrative fee that is not part of the contract. However, that fee will not be increasing for 2021.
So that 2.5% increase, that's not something the city is putting forward. That's something that's within the contract that was asked for by the haulers, right? I just want to be sure we're really clear about that so that folks understand that this increase that they're going to see on their bill that's a part of this whole package here. So it's easy to miss. That's not something the city is putting forward. That's something that is being asked by the haulers and by their consortium.
Mayor and council members, yes, the price escalators are set in our contract. So there is an escalated price of about 2.5% up to 3.5% over the 5.5 years of this contract. And I will say that it's about standard for a price escalator like that to occur in any sort of negotiated or competitive contract.
And just so I'm clear, when we say that there's going to be a price escalator, that price escalator is going to be every single year. So residents can be, they'll know that that's going to be an increase they'll see each year.
That's correct.
And that's different from the past contract. Is that correct?
Mayor and council members, in our past contract, we did have price escalators. It was a 2% escalation every other year. So it was at a much more graduated increase.
Thanks for that clarification. I just want to be sure that folks understand where the increase in their bill is coming from. Thanks for making that clear and straightforward.
Additional questions? Hearing none, this is a public hearing, and I'd like to open our combined public hearings on items 8.4 and 8.5, the public hearing on the ordinance to increase water rates, and 8.5, the public hearing, the ordinance to increase solid waste and refuse collection fees. This is a public hearing. Ms. Cheney, do we have anyone on the line who wishes to speak to either item 8.4 or 8.5?
Jerome, this is Amy. Can you please see if we have anyone interested in speaking to items 8.4 or 8.5?
No one joined for this item. You may continue.
Okay, with that, we are done with our public hearings for the evening, so we can disconnect the call, Jerome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Jerome. Thank you. Council, we have no one coming forward to speak to this public hearing. I look for a motion to close the hearing on item 8.4 and item 8.5.
So moved, Coulter.
Second, Councilmember Lohman.
We have a motion by Councilmember Coulter and a second by Councilmember Lohman to close the public hearings on item 8.4 and 8.5. Hearing no further public or council comment. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Bowman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bussey.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0 to close the public hearing. Council questions. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. This isn't actually a question, but Kari, could you go back to the slide titled Water Utility Asset Outlook? Perfect. Thank you. Again, no question, but I just wanted to point this slide out here because I felt like we kind of moved past it quickly. But, one of the things that I hear about from residents pretty frequently, as I imagine all of you do too, is, essentially why do you increase rates all the time? Why do you do this every year? Why are you continuing to do this? And I mean, the answer, frankly, is right in front of you with this slide, because we have the need to replace this infrastructure, and it's really expensive, and to not increase rates in a way that keeps up with that would result in these huge kind of spikes that we see on this graph. So I just wanted to, I don't know, for folks who are watching at home, I just kind of wanted to review that again, because I think that's a really, really important piece to the puzzle, that we are proactively keeping up with the need to invest in this infrastructure in a way that sort of flattens to use a term that we've all come to know, that flattens the curve a bit. So I just wanted to point that out as all.
It's a very good point, Councilmember Coulter. I mean, it's as Ms. Carlson said, it's to build reserves for the replacement of assets and aging infrastructure. And it's as simple as that. It's basically getting the money to have it on hand, so when all of the pipes that we have underneath the roads and underground here in the city of Bloomington, when they get to the end of their useful life, that we can afford to replace them, and we can keep the system working and operating, and the water as good as it's been for the past 20 years here in the city. Council, additional questions? Comments? I do want to add, I know that we have brought up in the past the overall cost of the aggregate of all of these different fees that we do have in the city. And I understand there are a lot with water and wastewater and trash and a number of different things. And I think sometimes to look at them individually, we kind of lose sight of the fact that they all come out of one checkbook. When they go to somebody's house, they come out of one bank account, one checking account. And I give our staff credit for understanding that, because we've had that discussion a couple of times in the past few years, and they have brought forward proposed increases here. I think that keeps that in mind. That keeps, for example, the wastewater rates as flat as possible, with the option of perhaps borrowing money from one to the other to try and offset, to looking at creative ways of doing things. I think it's, I do appreciate that. You look at this slide, the samples of the residential utility bills, that the increases every month or bi-monthly are, I mean, they're increases, granted, but they're not significant increases. They're minimal increases. And this is that aggregate cost that we've been talking about, and the understanding that people pay these, and they all add up, and they add up to a significant amount of money, and certainly you're getting a benefit for those things, and there are certain there's as I said, a benefit for what you're paying. You get what you pay for, and you're getting quite a bit for what you pay for. And I understand that it isn't an impact, and so I appreciate that the staff has worked to keep that aggregate total as low as possible, especially this year. So I'll tip my cap. Well done, staff. You listened. You heard what council had to say. We had heard what residents were saying to us, and I think it all kind of works together. So thanks much for doing that.
Thank you.
Council, anything further? If not, I would look for some action here on item 8.4 and 8.5.
Mayor, I'd be happy to go ahead and make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending section 11.63 to increase water rates.
Second, Martin.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman and a second by Councilmember Martin to adopt an ordinance and amending section 11.63 to increase water rates. Council, any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Busse.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Lohman.
Mayor, I'll move to adopt a resolution directing summary publication for the ordinance to increase water rates.
Second, Martin.
Motion by Councilmember Lohman, second by Councilmember Martin for summary publication. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Busse.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Lohman, do you want to keep going?
Well, I guess I'm still up. I'll keep it going here. I'll move to adopt a ordinance amending section 11.65.01 to increase solid waste and refuge collection fees.
Second, Martin.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lohman, a second by Councilmember Martin to adopt the ordinance amending section 11.65.01, increased solid waste and refuse collection fees. No further council discussion. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Bowman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And Councilmember Lohman.
We'll move to adopt a resolution directing summary publication of ordinance to increase solid waste and refuse collection fees.
Second, Martin.
Motion by Councilmember Lohman, second by Councilmember Martin for summary publication. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Bowman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thank you all for your work on this. Greatly appreciated the way this has all come together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So I have a few more slides here. So the one presentation I gave kind of encompassed all of the ordinances and resolutions for the utility rates and then also for the budgets. So I don't know if you want to, there's more discussion or if you want to keep going. These are the next slides I have is a resolution to change the stormwater charges.
Officially,
Fund budgets.
You're jumping into item 9.1 for us. So nope, this is an actual agenda item for us, and this is kind of why we move things around in the budget or in the agenda because then it lumped all of the budget stuff together. So with that, I want to call item 9.1, which is a resolution to change our stormwater charges. And now, Ms. Carlson, there you go.
Okay. So the presentation that goes with this was what I just gave. I kept all the utility funds together.
So the presentation that we just heard basically just kind of brings it all together, and this is the resolution to change the stormwater charges. Council, any questions on that? Any questions, Council? If not, look for action on this.
Mayor, I'm happy to make the motion.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move that we adopt the resolution establishing a basic system rate for the purpose of calculating stormwater drainage charges pursuant to section 16.17 of the city code.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Martin, a second by Councilmember Carter to establish a resolution to establish a basic system rate for the purpose of calculating stormwater and drainage charges pursuant to section 16.17 of the city code. Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And now we'll move on to item 9.2, resolution approving the 2021 utility fund budgets, which I think is probably along the same lines. We heard the presentation, and this just kind of brings everything together into one resolution approving these budgets.
Yes.
Council, any questions on this?
Mayor, I will move.
Councilmember Beloga.
I'm willing to make the motion if there's no further discussion.
I am hearing none. Councilmember, please.
Then I move to adopt a resolution adopting the 2021 water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste enterprise fund budgets.
Second, Coulter.
We have a motion by Councilmember Beloga and a second by Councilmember Coulter to adopt a resolution adopting the 2021 water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste enterprise fund budgets. Hearing no further council discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beloga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Bussey?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. With that, we can move to item 9.3 on tonight's agenda, which is a resolution approving the 2021 internal service fund budgets. Ms. Carlson.
Okay, so five more budgets. This presentation is going to highlight information from the materials that were last presented at the September 21st council study meeting. So there are a total of 8 internal service funds, and I will just be presenting 5 budgets for you this evening, 5 internal service funds, and that will be fleet, public safety, technology and equipment, the insurance fund, support services fund, and facilities and parks maintenance. So the other 3 internal service funds are the IT fund, the employee benefits fund, and accrued benefits fund, and those 3 budgets will come to the council next month for approval at the same time as the final general fund budget and tax levy, because they are tied to that. So for the first budget we're going to look at is the fleet fund. So this fund pays for the costs related to operations, maintenance, repair, and replacement of city vehicles and equipment, and the departments are charged for the vehicles and equipment that they use. And operating expenses are staff salaries and benefits. And as you may recall, that this year the staff was reduced from 15 down to 12 employees after this fleet service assessment. They also have materials, supplies and services, and internal charges like IT and charges from the insurance fund. And then of course, capital outlay for example, for purchases of vehicles. And so the charges are based on the maintenance and replacement for departments. And in past years, this was lumped together in one fleet equipment charge. But beginning with this 2021 budget, it's more transparent for departments. They can better see what is driving their charges. And they have 2 different line items in their budgets. One is for maintenance and repairs, and one is for future vehicle replacement. So for the fleet budget request, revenues are 7.6 million and expenses are 7.9 million, with a planned drawdown of funds for 2021 of 322,000. And there was a question asked about why the large differences in the capital line item and the capital spending over the years that are on this long-term model. And so the fleet manager, Michael Kime, responded that the big dip in 2019 for capital outlay that was actually spent is due to there were late deliveries on some high ticket items, such as some police vehicles that were delayed due to manufacturing changeover and a tank truck for the water treatment plant. So those vehicles, they've been encumbered in the 2019 budget, but weren't actually delivered until 2020. So that's kind of where you see the fluctuations there. The next fund, public safety, technology, and equipment. And this fund covers the portable radios and the dash-mounted radios for the city, mostly in police and fire. Public Works and Public Health also do have some portable radios. It also manages operations and replacement of those mobile data computers that you'll see in police and fire vehicles. And there are also some other police and fire equipment purchases that come through this fund. So here's all the different department charges that departments will see on their budgets that come from this fund. So if they have radios, they'll have radio operations and replacement. If they have the mobile data computers, the MDCs, they'll have the also operations replacement costs. Police also have body camera data fees, which is a newer expense in this fund. And then there's a police small equipment portion of the fund. And then for fire, there's also small equipment, and then also for large equipment purchases, such as large ladder trucks for the fire department. So for the public safety equipment budget request, revenues are at 1.3 million, expenses are at 1.6 million, with a planned drawdown of funds of around 257,000. Next internal service fund is the insurance fund. And this fund pays for costs and premiums and losses related to following types of insurance. For the workers' compensation, we are self-insured for workers' compensation up to $500,000, and that's when the Workers' Compensation Reinsurance Association kicks in. But up until that, it is this fund does fund that. Then for general liability, automobile, property, and some miscellaneous policies that we have for fireworks for Summerfed and medical for public health, liquor for the golf courses. Those are premiums that are paid to the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance. For the insurance fund request, revenues are $2.3 million in the 2021 budget request. Expenses are $2.4 million with a planned drawdown of funds of $86,000. And for this fund, there was a question asked, this is highlighted here on this budget model, about the increase in the working capital goal specifically for workers' compensation. And so our risk and litigation manager, Amy Larson, has some information about why that is. So early in 2020, the state legislature broadened the workers' compensation statute to presume that any frontline worker, including police, fire, and public health, that was infected with COVID-19 was exposed at work, and thereby making that workers' compensation claim. And then the legislature also attempted to work out a monetary cap that entities would have to pay related to workers' compensation expenses. However, that was not accomplished during the session. Therefore, so what we've done is calculate a potential exposure at over $3 million for COVID-19 injuries or claims alone. We also need to have a reserve for other types of workers' compensation claims. But that we based that on a formula from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust. So the working capital goal is increased over a 3-year period to allow the city to pay the maximum retention under our mandatory coverage with the Workers' Compensation Reinsurance Association of $500,000. So as we receive additional information on the cost of COVID-19 claims to our employees, specifically the long-term effects of the virus on the frontline employees, this working capital goal may be decreased. Next fund is the Support Services Fund. And Support Services Fund, it's a smaller fund, especially compared to some of these other ones we've been looking at. It is part of the Community Services Department and the Communications Division, and they have the mailroom, the print shop, and the information desk. And there's just one full-time employee in the print shop, and then 2 part-time employees in the mailroom and 2 part-time employees at the information desk. And that's charged out to departments based on, for the print shop, it's based on actual print jobs and the fees related to that and costs. The mailroom's based on annual postage expense and this, the amount of usage by department. And then phone charges based on number of phones. And that is actually part of that phone charge fee goes to the information desk, but then the other part goes to IT, because they're very heavily involved in the maintenance of our phones and support of our phone system. So for the Support Services Fund request, revenues are at $531,000 and expenses are $528,000. So smaller budget than some of the other internal service ones. And then the last one I have to present to you this evening is the Facilities and Park Maintenance Fund, which pays for the costs related to repair and maintenance of the city's buildings, parks, fire stations, and cemetery. So for their operating expenses in this fund, there's about 40 full-time employees. There's also part-time and temporary staff. So there's salaries and benefits. There's the utility bills for the city are paid out of this. The custodial services that are contracted out, contractors for electrical work, HVAC, plumbers, the garbage removal from the city's buildings and from the city parks, park maintenance expenses, and then internal charges. And then, of course, capital improvement projects. And those are charged to departments based on square footage for space and occupancy. And then also building repairs based on history of past projects that were needed. And then for the park maintenance piece, that is 100% allocated to the Parks and Recreation Department. And that includes salaries, materials, services, supplies, and capital. And so for the facility and parks maintenance budget fund request for 2021, revenues are at $13.3 million and expenses are $16.7 million. So it's a planned drawdown of funds of 3.3 million. And that there was a question about that in the council and why that was, why the expenses are so much more than the revenues. And the answer to that, so for the internal service funds, we do frequently build up funds over multiple years to then spend them down on the capital projects when they're planned or when they're needed. And so the 2021 budget request has a planned spend down of the working capital of 3.3 million. And just as a reminder, just overall for our 2021 budget strategy, the internal service funds, wherever possible, we have held those flat for 21 and 22, which means that so revenues for the funds are not increasing, and we are using some of the fund balance in different funds. So this 2021 budget request has a capital outlay budget request item of almost 4.9 million, and that includes like the public works roof replacement and some fleet garage improvements. And that was the end of my presentation. If there's any questions on any of those funds, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions on the 2021 internal service fund budgets? We have been over these before in study meetings and have talked about these on a couple of different occasions. Councilmember Martin?
Thank you very much. And I appreciated the response that staff provided. I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. I know when we went through the fleet services assessment, what seems like quite a while ago now, one of the findings was that some of our replacement schedules were substantially more accelerated than some of our surrounding communities, especially in some of our public safety vehicles. But if I'm looking at the right chart here, the fleet and equipment fund, the replacement charges to departments I see is increasing by about $400,000 or so in the 2021 budget request. Am I just confused here because that's split between the capital and operational budgets, or have we not implemented the totality of those service assessments recommendations on slowing down replacement schedules? Kind of where is that at?
Ms. Carlson?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Martin. So I just wanted to bring this up. So if you look at the 2020 budget request for total revenues, it is a split. It's a difference between what's being charged for maintenance and what's being charged for replacement. But overall, it's very close with the total budget. So it's 7.6 million, which is mostly made up of these internal charges for 2020. And then for 2021, there's also 7.6 million. You see that for the budgeted internal department charges. So it is different between the maintenance charges and the replacement charges after that fleet service assessment. That's more correctly reflecting what those actual charges are.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Additional questions? Comments? If not, council, I would look for action on this. On item 9.3, a resolution approving our 2021 internal service fund budgets.
Mayor, I can make the motion.
Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. So I'd move to adopt the resolution adopting the 2021 Fleet Maintenance, Public Safety, Technology and Equipment, Self-Insurance, Support Services, and Facilities and Park Maintenance Fund budgets.
Do we have a second?
Second, Councilmember Lohman.
We have a motion by Councilmember Carter and a second by Councilmember Lohman to adopt the resolution adopting our 2021 internal service fund budgets. Any further council discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. Beluga?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Mayor Busse?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And once again, thanks to To Ms. Carlson, thanks to all of our budget staff for pulling all of this together. It's I know it's a yearly task, and it's a long task, and it's an arduous task, and I appreciate the work that goes into it to pull all those funds and all the budgets together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please
Have a
pass
good
that
day.
on to your staff as well.
I will.
Item 9.4 on our agenda is the City Council Policy and Issue Update. Mr. Verbrugge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I have 4 items for you. I'll move quickly through them. The first, and I think the most salient for residents of the community, is that the state of Minnesota has just today opened a saliva testing station for people to get tested for COVID-19. That testing station in Bloomington is at Ridgeview Elementary, which is at 94th and Nesbitt, which is about a quarter mile west of Normandale and 94th. And it is a by appointment testing station. However, I believe they have limited walk-up opportunities. They are operating from noon until 6. It'll be open tomorrow, Tuesday. It'll be closed over the long Thanksgiving weekend, and then they will be back open again next Monday. It'll be a Monday to Friday operation, noon until 6 p.m. Again, it's at Ridgeview Elementary. The state of Minnesota is strongly encouraging anybody ages 18 and 35 to get tested, whether you feel any symptoms or not, as that age group is amongst the most likely to be asymptomatic. And obviously engaging in social activities that may be contributing to the spread of COVID-19. Also encourage anybody else, if you're feeling unwell in any way, or you're concerned just about whether you may have it, there's really no restriction at this point on getting tested. There's no reason not to, with the state opening as many testing stations as they can. Obviously, everybody at this point is aware that the state of Minnesota has been put on a 4-week hiatus here from many activities, and we want to contribute to what people of Bloomington can do to protect themselves, protect their family members, and protect the rest of the community. So encourage everybody to either get to the Bloomington testing station. There's also stations conveniently located at the airport and in Burnsville. There may be a couple more coming online shortly. The second item, the governor announced new technologies that are being used to help with contact tracing for people to opt into with the use of their cell phones. We will be sharing that information when we're comfortable that we have the details right, so that our community is aware of what tools are available, again, to protect yourself and to protect your family. Because we are in this 4-week period now where restaurants and bars are closed and gyms are closed, I want to make sure that that everybody knows in the business community, or if you are a person who has friends or family running a business of that nature, that Hennepin County has announced a business assistance program that businesses meeting certain criteria will be eligible for up to $15,000 of assistance to try and make it through the 4 weeks here. And that eligibility is whether a business did or did not participate earlier in the year in other assistance, although the amount of assistance that may have been received will be subtracted from that $15,000 total this time. And we have, Mr. Mayor and council members, shared that information with our business community last Friday. Our staff sent that information from Hennepin County about the program out through our email contacts to our licensed establishments and the businesses that participated in the Small Business Emergency Assistance Loan Program that the city and the Port Authority supported earlier this year. So we're making sure that the business community here in Bloomington is aware of what assistance is available to them. And it's important that if a business here in Bloomington wishes to apply for that program, that information is due by December 1st. So there's a relatively quick turnaround to find out if you're eligible for those funds. And then finally, The state, it's been reported in the media, the state is also looking at some relief package options that they may be introducing in the upcoming special session. We will be tracking those very closely as well. And as information about that becomes available and whether it is likely that that sort of assistance will be provided, we will make sure to share that information just as we have the Hennepin County program. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions of Mr. Verbrugge? Hearing none. Councilmember Coulter, Councilmember Martin. I'm sorry, I didn't see who got in there first. Who got Councilmember Martin or Councilmember Coulter? I wasn't sure who got in first.
It's all Councilmember Coulter, if you'd like to take it first.
Let's go with Councilmember Coulter, Councilmember Martin, Councilmember Lohman, and Councilmember Carter. Councilmember Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, actually, what the city manager just mentioned leads in nicely to what I wanted to bring up, because I think, like all of us, I'm getting more and more concerned about our ability to combat COVID. When we talked about and extended the emergency declaration, we know that not only is COVID threatening to overwhelm our healthcare system, but it's having an increasingly dire effects on city operations as well. I'm sure we all saw just recently the article in the Star Tribune about the state fire marshal signaling some real concern over our fire department's ability to respond to emergencies. And of course, the city managers also detailed some other ways in which COVID is affecting city operations. And I've been thinking a lot as well about what Dr. Kelly said at our last COVID update, particularly in light of the information that the Minnesota Department of Health has released on where outbreaks have originated. And, in short, we know that people who develop COVID are going back to work simply because they can't afford not to. And we know that many of them work in the service industry. And we also know that getting community spread under control is going to be key to beating this virus back. But we don't know when or how quickly a vaccine is going to be widely distributed, or how long the governor will extend the measures he announced last week. And well, given the results of the election, I don't know really what we can expect from the state legislature or for Congress for that matter. So what I'd like us to do is focus on the things that we can do, both in terms of how we can help our community fight COVID and how we can ensure greater resilience for working folks moving forward. And to that end, I think it is time that we revive the conversation on earned sick and safe time. We are seeing here and now in Bloomington in a very, very real way that it is absolutely essential for everyone to be able to take time off if they're sick or if they need to care for a sick family member. It's essential for public health. It's essential for rebuilding after COVID. And it's essential for an economy that's better able to weather whatever storms may come in the future. I know obviously we are where we are in the year, and the budget and the levy should be our top priority right now. So I recognize that this isn't going to happen right away, but I do think we owe it to our community, frankly, to move as soon as possible to boldly address the gaps that have been laid bare, to do what we can to help fight and then move beyond COVID, and to ensure greater stability and success for everyone who works in Bloomington. So what I'd like to do tonight is ask staff to let us know when we can expect another discussion on it, when we can expect concrete steps or a proposal for the council to consider to take shape. And I guess I would just say that my expectation would be sometime in the first few months of next year. This is just very much an urgent need. And I just think we're beyond the point, frankly, of waiting around, wishing and hoping for others to act.
Thank you, Councilmember Coulter. Mr. Verbrugge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Councilmember Coulter, staff is preparing to bring that conversation back to the city council in January or February as we, over the next couple of weeks, look at our calendar for council meetings. In those 2 months, we'll figure out when we have the best time available to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. And I agree with you, Councilmember Coulter. We need to start that conversation. We have to stop pushing it off, and we actually need to have the conversation and see where it leads. Because it's, I agree, there's this dire need. There's this important policy issue that we need to think about. And we need to think about the best ways to address that as the city of Bloomington. So I think we need to start that conversation, and sooner rather than later. I would agree with you. Councilmember Martin.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yeah, and just very briefly, I guess I'm pretty heartened to hear that staff's going to have that in front of us pretty quick. I just keep coming back to we've done a lot of great work, and staff has done a lot of great work putting together financial supports. I think of folks in our restaurant industry going through opening and closing and trying to figure out how to pay rent, and then when their restaurant is open to get sick and not have a choice and not know how to move forward. It can be counterproductive. But the item I just wanted to speak to real quickly here, kind of as we look to the horizon, both from that long-term planning perspective and kind of the current community conversations we have going on, I just thought it was really interesting, the approach to public safety improvement that St. Paul very recently launched. Folks might have seen it in the Star Tribune. They're calling it the Community First Public Safety Commission, but essentially it's just members of the public, the nonprofit community, the business community. I know XL has representation, and city government just coming together to figure out how to handle it more efficiently. Specifically, they're focused on what they're calling priority 4 and 5 calls, kind of lower priority, non-emergency, but wondering, are those better fielded by folks like frontline social service professionals, shelter assistance folks, or even just being proactive about deeper neighborhood engagement to get out ahead and be proactive about preventing crime in the first place. So obviously we're not St. Paul, and Bloomington issues need Bloomington solutions. But just as we're starting to get our heads out to what economic recovery looks like, our budget situation starting to improve, I just kind of wanted to put a conversational bookmark out to say that something like this about what are the smart investments we can make on the back end of all this, innovative investments we can make, I think could really pay dividends. So hopefully, again, once we get to the strategic planning stuff, we can dig in a little bit more, but wanted to call it out now.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Councilmember Lohman.
Oh, thank you, folks. I ended up getting something in the mail just a couple days ago. I know that Diane Kirby talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I got this Voice of the People Award sent to me in the mail, and want to let you know that I'll make sure that gets in the cabinet, so we can add that onto our awards. For those folks that may have heard about it, for whatever reason, they had actually sent the application to me, and I had sent it on to staff. But it's the Palaco and International City and County Management Association, or ICMA, the more commonly known, has announced the city of Bloomington is a winner of the Voice of the People Award for 2020. The award is of excellence, recognizing the city's strength in engaging residents online. The city has been expanding its online presence, providing a forum for residents to share feedback and suggestions and questions in a quick and easy manner. And I'll be sure that we get this in here. I'll drop this off of my yellow bags later on this week, but there it is, so you all can see it. I'll make sure we get it in there. Along those same notes, since it's just an example, really, Mayor, of just how excellent our staff, the hardworking staff, has done with that, and just any number of the other items that we work on. Over the last couple of days, the National League of Cities has had its conference, and I had the opportunity to attend it virtually. And certainly, given the events that have taken place over the last year, given the economy, the George Floyd events, and the items with COVID, the themes have really been around at the conference around resilience and how do we basically help our cities get past the types of things that we're facing. I had the opportunity to attend a number of different classes. One was around resilient leadership, a new way of seeing, thinking, and leading, an excellent conference to kind of get me thinking outside of the box. Hope to share some of those ideas with the rest of my colleagues. And then closing the analytical gap for the economy is just another one. And I also know that our city manager had the opportunity also to present at the conference as well. I'm not sure if he wants to mention at all about his presentation that he gave.
Mr. Verbrugge, I forgot that you were a presenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Lohman. Appreciate the recognition for our staff who really have done a fantastic job trying to stay engaged with the community during a very difficult time. And I had the chance to talk about that in one of those sessions, which was actually about engaging with community in a time of crisis. And it was, again, with the Polco folks. It was a part of the solutions session track. And the Polco team invited me to be a member of their panel to talk about how we have done engaging with people, especially virtually, over the last 8 months, and making sure that residents continue to be involved in the decision-making process, with particular emphasis on our Community Budget Advisory Committee and the way that that work unfolded over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, and how we made a determined decision to make sure that the voice of residents were included in some very difficult budget decisions. And obviously we haven't landed that plane entirely yet, as we have another couple of discussions with the city council coming up. But I think the way that our staff put that process together and worked with the Budget Advisory Committee and made sure that they were doing outreach to the rest of the community, to have listening sessions, to have information about, to really put a frame around what some of those budgeting decisions meant for people in the community, and to get authentic feedback from residents, has really contributed, I think, to a good budget process this year that really serves as a template for us going forward. And there's the old phrase, you don't want to let a good crisis go to waste. And we're forced to innovate sometimes in the face of crisis. And I think the work that our staff has done this year, our outreach and engagement team, our budgeting team, in the various departments, all of them who are frontline folks working with the community, have had to completely rethink how we engage with people. And I got to tell you, I couldn't be prouder to work with the folks that I get to work with. Thank you, Councilmember Lohman, for bringing that up.
Thank you, City Manager and Mayor. And I do hope to get a chance. They saved all of the presentation, so I will get an opportunity to watch your presentation. I promise I'll get that done sometime by the end of December. Just 3 extra really quick things here. I wanted to echo Councilmember Coulter's items around the earn sick and leave policy. Want to just remind staff there were a number of us council members who also wanted to make sure that we have business involvement with that chamber to be sure that we are addressing all sides of that particular issue. No more needs to be said about that. I think that's in those prior conversations earlier this year. Next, I wanted to bring up recently there's been some stuff out there on the web regarding an accident in my district around France Avenue and Overlook. And residents are looking for a way to get that resolved. I know I brought that up with the city manager. No need to talk about that now, but just hoping that staff will look into that to help us get that resolved. And then finally, I wanted to bring forth something that Councilmember Carter had brought forward, that I would be interested in having a conversation around labor practices with workers that do work within the city, especially around our affordable housing pieces, to make sure that those fit with our high levels of standards of work. We talked about that just at the beginning of this, about how we kind of exude that as a city. And so I would expect that those folks that work in our city would also fit those high standards as well. And I think Jenna really hit on a good point earlier today, and I want to just lend my support for us continuing to have conversation around that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have 2 things. So first, I also wanted to bring up earn sick and save time. So I'm glad that Councilmember Coulter did already, and I won't repeat much of what he said. I think for me, you know, we've been having this conversation for about a year now. So I feel during my time on council, I should say, maybe they were being had before that, but you know, I know I myself brought this up as a priority in that one of our very first meetings of the year, talking about the things that we wanted to get done this year. And obviously, so much has happened, things that we never could have even anticipated. And so I understand that there have been a lot of things that have come up that has, backburnered a couple of things. But this has continuously popped up this year. And I know for myself, I've been trying to make the public health case. It's been very obvious to a lot of people in the public health community that essential workers are often people who are in hourly positions who are making minimum wage. They are not people who can quarantine for 14 or even longer days. And I will give an example for my own family. Thankfully, I have a job that has benefits, so I was able to continue to earn income, and I had a job when I was finished with quarantine. But when my daughter tested positive, she had to be in isolation for 10 days. And then my 14-day quarantine didn't actually start until her last day of isolation. So that's 24 days that I could have been out of work. And so I think that there are a lot of people facing really, really difficult decisions, wanting to do the right thing, but literally they can't because they have to keep a roof over their heads. And so for me, I'm feeling very passionate about this tonight, and I'm feeling a little bit frustrated because I would have loved to have seen us do something months ago because people need it right now. And so I hope that we can kind of put our foot on the gas for that. I'm begging that we get that going quickly. And I respect the fact that we need to engage the business community. And I think that the business community sees the writing on the wall and they want to do the right thing too. So my second thing brought up earlier, and Councilmember Lohman just brought it up, the prevailing wage issue. And I would encourage staff, I'm glad that there's more interest among my colleagues here. I would encourage staff to look at Richfield. So I know they just passed a prevailing wage ordinance that included protections for wage theft and human trafficking. And I think, I'm not sure if they're the first in the state, but I think that they were highlighted in some of our local newspapers and things like that. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I appreciate all the calls to have the necessary conversation about the earned sick time and leave and all that. And I just want to bring up one thing, and it's not to contradict anything that has been said, but by federal law, people have a benefit related to COVID today. You can get you have to get paid leave if you are sick in quarantine because of COVID, if you have to stay home to take care of a child or something like that. Your employer is supposed to provide that benefit by federal law right now. And that cost to the business is reimbursed by the federal government. So it isn't an additional cost at this point. However, that expires on December 30th. And so it's going away very quickly. So I think the timeliness of the conversation makes sense. But if there is, the reason I bring this up is if there is anybody in the community that is trying to make that choice between going to work and you're maybe thinking you might have symptoms of COVID, by law, by federal law, you have the right to that time off. You have the right to go in and get tested. You have the right to get paid for the time that you miss. That is current federal law right now. So again, not trying to contradict anyone, just really trying to encourage people that aren't feeling well to understand that they have that benefit provided by the federal government right now, at least for a week and a month. So that's just want to bring that up.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anything else? Councilmember Coulter, you want a second bite of the apple?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. I meant to just ask one other quick question. I've got some questions from residents about when the process around the recount for the ballot question number 3, regarding ranked choice voting, and I'm wondering if staff has any more details on that.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Coulter, for jogging my memory. That was supposed to be on my list of update items for you. There will not be a recount for ballot question number 3. The petitioners had until 5 p.m. This past Friday to provide a bond for the cost to perform the recount, and they did not come forward with such a surety. So as such, the results will stand and we will move forward.
Anything else, Councilmember Coulter? A couple quick things to end on then, that I will end on. First, I just want to say that like a lot of people, I was disappointed and saddened in the way that the DNR dealt with Penny the turkey. I mean, I'll just say it. It should have ended differently. I wish it would have ended differently. Unfortunately, it didn't. One of the best parts about living here in Bloomington is the urban wildlife that we get the pleasure of seeing, whether it's the raccoons or the turkeys or the deer in your yard or the albino squirrel in my backyard or the geese or whatever. And it makes it a special place to live. And it's disappointing that one of those wild animals met the end that he did. It's important to understand, I think, the definition. I mean, they are wildlife. They are wild animals, and they should be treated as such. And I think it's a lesson to be learned on behalf of the folks who fed Penny also and kind of domesticated him a little bit and kind of led to this. But I am very disappointed and saddened about the way it ended. It should have ended differently, and I wish it had. So that's kind of the downer note. The other downer note, obviously, the governor announced the dial back last week and talked about how things are closing down, and we know that times are even more difficult for so many of our businesses here in Bloomington. And what I want to do this weekend in particular, but also for the rest of the year, however long you would like to define it, that we've got to make it a point of pride, a point of community pride, that we have to support our local businesses in Bloomington. We're coming into Black Friday. We're coming into the kickoff of the Christmas holiday shopping season. I strongly encourage you, do what you can to shop locally in Bloomington. There are plenty of opportunities to shop non-big box, to shop locally, to shop the shops, the businesses that have supported so many different organizations and sports teams and community organizations and have done so in the past, and now it's our turn to support them. Please, please spend your dollars this weekend supporting local business. And along those lines, the restaurants who are now forced to go back to takeout or carry out only, by Saturday, folks, you're going to be tired of turkey. I want to see everybody ordering takeout and supporting our local businesses. Support those local restaurants from now all the way through the new year. Give as much business as you can to them. We've got to get through to the other side. We all have to get through to the other side, and especially those small businesses hanging by a thread. Their margins are razor thin to begin with. We've got to be able to get them along, get them through until we get to a point where they can start to trend in the other direction. So buy local, shop local, and please order takeout from any of our local restaurants here in Bloomington. You'll be happy you did. It'll make their day. It'll be a good thing for them. And I also just want to finish by saying, wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving weekend. It's a great holiday, one of my favorite holidays. But please do what you need to do to keep yourself safe, to keep your family safe, to keep the community safe, to keep healthcare workers safe. Let's keep everybody safe. We're all in this together. Do what we need to do to keep everybody safe, please, because it's going to be a long, cold winter if we're not only facing down darkness in the typical Minnesota winter, but this pandemic still raging like it is right now. So please do what you can. Do what you need to do. Council, is there anything else? If not, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Christensen.
Sorry you caught me off guard and I didn't hear Councilmember Carter made the motion. Who made the second?
Martin.
Oh, thank you. All right. Beloga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter.
Aye.
Lohman.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Bessie.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you much to staff. Good work again tonight. Thank you, council, for your dedication, your work tonight. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you all for tuning in to watch. Have a great evening. Thanks.
Good night, folks.